Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Friday, and today is a big day for Pierre Poilievre. He's out in Calgary for a mandatory leadership review. It's a big Conservative Party of Canada party, and we're going to cover it live tonight. He'll be going live with his speech, and we'll be live on the air, and it'll be a lively Friday night, I guess. All kinds of stuff going on. Trump having a meltdown in the White House. We have what else is new? I'm going to clarify some stuff from last night that was said about the Freedom Convoy donations. I'm going to elaborate on some other things that were commented on last night with regard to we'll probably talk a little bit about the separatist movement out in Alberta. It all ties into the Canadian political discussion this evening. So we have all that. Plus, how could I let this go by without mentioning it during the headline portion of tonight's broadcast? More Epstein files released. Stay with me. We have all kinds of stuff to unpack tonight.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
And right off the bat, I'd like to thank Regis Tremblay for inviting me to join him on his broadcast today. I was on there earlier, so you might want to go check out his channel and see what we were talking about. Not surprisingly, the name Donald Trump came up. But before we get into all of that, no, I can't. Donald Trump lead story tonight. Epstein files. More Epstein files released. Justice Department released a massive new batch of investigative files related to the late convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche announced during a press conference that the release includes more than 3 million additional pages. Did you get that? 3 million additional pages of documents, along with over 2,000 videos and 180,000 images. When combined with earlier releases, the total now approaches 3.5 million pages. I don't even know how any of this makes sense. That's just so much material. But anyway, Blanche noted that the materials include large quantities of commercial pornography and other images seized from Epstein's devices, some of which were taken by Epstein himself. He directly addressed speculation about a so-called secret list of high-profile men associated with Epstein who allegedly abused women, stating there is no such list being withheld. Blanche also pushed back on claims that the department is shielding President Donald Trump, who was once socially connected to Epstein, as we all know. He said, "We did not protect President Trump." He went on to say, "We didn't protect or not protect anybody." We have the clip. Let the man speak for himself. Here we go.
Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images. In total, that means that the department produced approximately 3.5 million pages in compliance with the Act. Just a quick note about the videos and images. The 2,000 videos and 180,000 images are not all videos and images taken by Mr. Epstein or someone around him. They include large quantities of commercial pornography and images that were seized from Epstein's devices, but which he did not take or that someone around him did not take. Some of the videos, though, and some of the images do appear to be taken by Mr. Epstein or by others around him. Now, I want to talk for a few minutes about the department's document identification and review protocols. It consisted of multiple layers of review and quality control designed to ensure compliance under the Act and protect victims. On top of the review protocols that the department had in place, the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York employed an additional review protocol to ensure compliance with a court order requiring United States Attorney Jay Clayton to certify that with respect to certain materials, a large quantity of the materials, a rigorous process was undertaken to protect victims against any clearly unwarranted invasion of their personal privacy. The department's collection effort resulted in more than 6 million pages being identified as potentially responsive, including department and FBI emails, interview summaries, images, videos, and various other materials collected and generated during the various investigations and prosecutions that the Act covered. We erred on the side of over-collection of materials from various sources to best ensure maximum transparency and compliance, which necessarily means that the number of responsive pages is significantly smaller than the total number of pages initially collected. That's why I mentioned a moment ago we're releasing more than 3 million pages today and not the 6 million pages that we collected. I want to address what we didn't produce. The categories of documents withheld include those permitted under the Act to be withheld: files that contain personally identifiable information of victims or victims' personal and medical files, and similar files, the disclosure of which would constitute a clearly unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. Any depiction of CSAM or child pornography was obviously excluded. Anything that would jeopardize an active federal investigation. And finally, anything that depicts or contain images of death, physical abuse, or injury, also not produced. Although the Act allows for withholding for items necessary to keep secret in the interest of national security or foreign policy, no files are being withheld or redacted on that basis.
We also have seen images of what happened on Sunday, protests at...
Okay. Yeah, we'll comment a little bit again on that, what's going on in Minneapolis tonight, too. So, Epstein was charged in 2019 and in federal court in Manhattan with sex trafficking of minors. Many of the alleged victims were underage girls he reportedly preyed on during what he called massages. He died in jail while awaiting trial, as I'm sure you all know, and his death was officially ruled a suicide. The files released earlier included photos of Epstein and his convicted co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, appearing to be on trips or vacations with others. Epstein long associated with wealthy and influential figures, including former friendships with President Trump before falling out about 20 years ago, former President Bill Clinton, billionaire Les Wexner, and Britain's Prince Andrew. Trump has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing related to Epstein and has never been charged or accused in connection with the case. During his 2024 presidential campaign, Donald Trump pledged to declassify the Epstein files if elected. After taking office, Attorney General Pam Bondi indicated an Epstein client list was under review for release. So the files are sitting on my desk, she said. But earlier materials shared with supporters contained no such list and were already public information. So frustration from many, including many supporters, grew when the department and FBI concluded, I guess, in July that no further investigations into other individuals were warranted. And then, of course, we've seen the pressure mount. It really intensified again in November after Democrats released certain Epstein emails prompting bipartisan passage of the Transparency Act, which wasn't really truly complied with. And Epstein's earlier legal troubles included a 2006 Florida case where he pleaded guilty to state charges involving one underage victim under a controversial non-prosecution agreement. He served 13 months in a county jail with work release privileges and private security. Ghislaine Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year federal prison sentence for her role in conspiring to traffic minors. And of course, we've seen reports recently that indicate she has sought to have her conviction set aside, citing new evidence. And I think she's in that cushy country club kind of prison. And the Justice Department is saying that this release today fulfills its obligations under the law, though a lot of people are critical of that, questioning the scope of redactions and withheld portions tonight. And the materials are now publicly accessible on the department's website. But this ain't going away.
protect the victims. And also Donald Trump. Coincidence? Just dumb luck. Right? Another sealed file. That crocodile smile. We did our best, says the DOJ, while the truth just fades away. Another new spin. No one will win except the rich guys with gold ID cards and closets full of secrets behind steel bars.
And we'll be right back.
Maverick News isn't just a news outlet, it's a community of truth seekers. Your donation at freedomreporters.com fuels our mission to report the stories that mainstream media won't touch. Thank you, Maverick family.
Have you seen Trump's latest? I'd call it a tariff tantrum, but it isn't. It's a temper tantrum. It's a non-tariff trade barrier tantrum. Do you know what a non-tariff trade barrier is? That's a way of impeding trade between countries without using a tariff through regulations generally. So today, this is a breaking story. It affects the aviation industry. He posted, I think it was on Truth Social, but it's making headlines through all the media outlets and causing waves in many sectors of the economy in Canada. Trump's latest tariff threat has targeted Canada's aviation industry. Here's how reaction unfolded. This is the headline over at CBC. Says, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened on Thursday to slap 50% tariffs on all aircraft made in Canada until Canadian regulators certify several American-produced aircraft. He also threatened to decertify Canadian-produced Bombardier Global Express business jets, a move that would affect many U.S. airlines. Canadian Industry Minister Melanie Joly spoke with CBC, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of misspoke there, because it's not so much that he's using non-tariff trade barriers. What he's kind of accusing Canada of doing that, because we haven't approved certain U.S.-built jets in Canada. And so he's retaliating. Bombardier said in a statement published Thursday that it is in contract with the Canadian government following Trump's announcement. Thousands of private and civilian jets built in Canada fly in the U.S. every day. We hope this is quickly resolved to avoid a significant impact to air traffic. I don't think their story really fully explained the story. Here, let me see if I can find another version. Trump says he is decertifying Canadian-made aircraft and threatens 50% tariffs. Yes, he's decertifying. It's not just tariffs. So, going to decertify all Canadian aircraft made in Canada and threaten a 50% tariff. And he specifically said he was decertifying the Global Express. And here's what he said in his post. This is better. On CNN. Canada is effectively prohibiting the sale of Gulfstream products in Canada through this very same certification process, Trump wrote on Truth Social. If for any reason this situation is not immediately corrected, I am going to charge Canada a 50% tariff on any and all aircraft sold into the United States of America. So basically he's saying that there's no reason these aircraft shouldn't be certified, although Canada's certification process is no doubt somewhat different. Safety rules, no doubt somewhat different. Even automobiles. There are certain standards that are different between Canada and the U.S. Sometimes they have to put like different bumper mounts or even bumpers on certain models of cars to make them comply with crash standards in Canada, which are a little bit different. Just things like that. So I'm not sure exactly what the technicalities are surrounding all this, but a lot of jobs on the line here. And it just shows how this is a rough and tumble world, this world of trade negotiation. So far, none of the regional airlines that provide those feeder flights have reported having planes grounded. 648 passenger CRJ jets that are made in Canada that are in use by U.S. airlines. So another shot across the bow as we prepare to enter into the review of the Canada-US-Mexico free trade deal. Now, as I said, we're going to go out shortly to Calgary to pick up live coverage of the Conservative Party of Canada convention review of Pierre Poilievre's leadership of the party. But before we do that, let's just get a little clip here. This is Michelle Rempel-Garner. She's out there, of course. She's the shadow immigration minister.
Maverick News.
Well, I apologize for that. We had a bit of an internet glitch. I was talking to myself for a moment because I guess our stream was interrupted and everything was frozen and I just couldn't get anything to load. So I went to the transition and now we're back and I think we're firing on all cylinders. And as I was saying, Michelle Rempel-Garner, conservative, shadow immigration minister at the Conservative Party of Canada convention out in Calgary tonight, talking about immigration. Let's play the clip. Harrison Faulkner.
You've been spearheading the party's new shift on immigration policy. I want to know how Conservative members have been receiving your efforts and the party's change in approach to immigration.
Well, it's not just Conservative members. They're common sense proposals to restore order and fairness to Canada's immigration system, right? We've seen over a decade of Liberal government the abject destruction of what was a fair and orderly immigration system. You never saw immigration talked about as a problem until Justin Trudeau, and then, of course, under the Mark Carney Liberals, you've got a very weak immigration minister under Mark Carney right now. This was their issues, and what happened? They brought too many people in too fast for housing, healthcare, and jobs to keep up. So all of the proposals that we put forward, so for example, abolishing the temporary foreign worker program, ending the automatic ending the automatic passing along of Canadian citizenship to a descendant if at least one parent is not a permanent resident, which is what most countries around the world already do. These are common sense proposals that will restore order and fairness. But it's not just about reforming the immigration system right now. It's also ensuring that temporary means temporary. Under the Liberal government, there's now, I think the last figure I saw, and I'm not even sure they know, there's at least 2.1 million people in Canada that are on expired or expiring visas. They don't really have a plan to ensure that those people leave. And they're setting immigration levels without having that plan in place. So it's also about ensuring that the law on leaving Canada when your visa is up is followed and enforced. So, it's been a really heavy lift this fall. I want to thank my team for all their work, but we're going to keep, again, ensuring order and fairness and holding the Liberals to account on this.
Looks like maybe we have a black screen again. I don't know what's going on. Let me just check the feed. We'll come in over here and see if we're actually running. I think we're okay. Yeah, we're here. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on, but I know that the feed might be sporadic or intermittent. So doing my best here, beyond my control. I'll just keep on talking and hope for the best. So you heard the clip from Michelle Rumpel-Garner, and that kind of brings me back to something I didn't even really want to dig into because it's a very complex and yet actually simple subject that was touched on last night with our friend Phil Primo, and that is this Comer court case, which challenged the government's monetary policies and the way that borrowing and lending occurs between the Bank of Canada and the federal government. And it's a complex thing, and it goes all the way back really to the 1970s, 74 specifically. And I just wanted to just touch on it again because the case is complicated. I didn't really want to get into it, and I think that there were just some things left hanging last night. Now, the Comer case, which is formerly known as the Committee for Monetary and Economic Reform, Comer, was a lawsuit initiated in 2011 by the Committee on Monetary and Economic Reform. It's a monetary reform advocacy group, kind of a political, sort of a political group, and two individual plaintiffs against the Canadian government, the Bank of Canada and related officials. And the core allegations centered on the Bank of Canada Act, claiming that the Bank of Canada had a statutory and constitutional duty to provide interest-free loans to the federal, provincial, and municipal governments for infrastructure and human capital expenditures. Things like education, healthcare, building roads, social services. And the plaintiffs argued that since around 1974, the banks shift away from this practice, favoring borrowing from the private market, led to unnecessary public debt, higher taxes, and reduced public spending. Now they're saying, and Phil was saying last night, private banks. That's not really accurate to say that they are strictly borrowing from private banks. It opened everything up to the private or the broad market, okay? And it was all influenced by international then financial institutions, is what they were saying, like the Bank of International Settlements, which I don't think a lot of people even understand how it functions. But they sought declarations that this violated the Act, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the Constitution, along with damages, and in order to restore the bank's original role. And the case progressed through a bunch of different levels of the federal court system. It was they ruled against the case a number of times, and then there were appeals, a series of appeals. It got very complex. But as I said last night, and I stand by my word flawed, and when I was saying, I when I used the word flawed, I was really, Phil, if you're listening or maybe watching this later, It wasn't an attack on you. It's an attack on, not even an attack. It's a commentary on the court case and the point of view. So the courts ruled that there was no reasonable cause of action. A fundamental requirement for any lawsuit is that the pleadings must disclose a reasonable cause of action, meaning that the claims must have some legal basis with a prospect of success if proven true. And the courts repeatedly found that the Comer claims were lacking here. For instance, in 2016, the federal court decision from Mr. Justice Michael L. Phelan, upholding an earlier strike against the case, stated that the amended claim, and this was a quote that I looked up, he said, discloses no reasonable cause of action and has no prospect of success at trial. And I said the case was flawed from the beginning. Decision after decision after decision after decision ruled in the same way. A central flaw was the plaintiff's reading of Section 18 of the Act, which lists the bank's powers, which is to make loans or advances to governments. And Comer argued that the word may imposed a mandatory duty on the bank to provide interest-free loans to government. And the courts disagreed, interpreting may as a permissive or discretionary, not obligatory thing. And this literal reading was the key to early strikes in the court cases. It undermined the claim that the government and bank were violating the act by not lending interest-free. Not that it was ever actually interest-free. There was always some degree of interest charged, but because the system was set up so that the Bank of Canada was basically lending money to the federal government and they were exchanging back and forth, it was sort of like you're lending money to yourself, because the Bank of Canada is like a crown corporation. And all the loans were like low interest. The money was being exchanged at low interest rates, but then the interest that was accumulated, what some would argue, was being charged, and then the federal government got that money back anyway, making it effectively zero. It's sort of a sleight of hand. Anyway, Justice Russell noted that while may isn't always permissive, the plaintiffs failed to provide a full evidentiary record or legal argument to support a mandatory interpretation, and the government's discretion in monetary policy was seen as intentional, aligning with the Act's purpose of maintaining independence in economic management. So at the end of the day, and Phil is quite right about this, it was just, the ruling was that it's not up to the courts to make a decision on this kind of thing, that this is something, monetary policy is something that the government is responsible for and is charged with. And when I say charged, I mean it's their responsibility, their duty even, to administer these policies, and they can change them if they so choose, because they're the government. It's not up to the courts to dictate how any country, how Canada administers monetary policy. It's not up to the courts to set interest rates. You see, so the plaintiffs essentially lacked standing, which is what I said last night, a direct personal stake in the outcome. Their claims were generalized grievances affecting all Canadians. So even the fact that's another flaw in the court case, is that they didn't really have standing. This is actually, pretty complex. I probably shouldn't even be talking to it to this degree tonight, because I'll probably lose a lot of you. You'll probably move on. But I just wanted to address it again, because there's like this group of people who still cling to this court case, and they still discuss it. And there's some merit in discussing monetary policy and whether this method of this approach to monetary policy pre-1974 was valid or better. That's the way it was sort of done in Canada from 1930s up to 1974. But in the late 1950s, like but that system was flawed in itself, because that was the other falsity that I pointed out last night, was these claims that there was never any inflation, or that there was just very low inflation under the old monetary policies and system prior to 74, and it is not true. In the late 1950s, for instance, Canada was grappling with economic challenges, including rising inflation. It was peaking at around 3.2%, which is well above the target 2% that we always have now under the current system. So it was about 3.2% in 1956. Then it was followed by a slowdown that led to higher unemployment and recessionary pressures by 1959, 1961. And there was this great conflict that erupted politically in the country because of it. It's the Coyne case, and Coyne was a staunch advocate for anti-inflationary measures. He pursued a tight monetary policy, and this involved maintaining or raising interest rates to curb inflation and prevent excessive borrowing, which he viewed as a threat to long-term economic stability, not unlike what we have right now. He publicly criticized the government's expansionary fiscal policies, such as increased spending and deficits, and he was at odds with Prime Minister Diefenbaker at the time. And Diefenbaker's government, facing political pressures from this sluggish economy and upcoming elections, favored lower interest rates, not unlike what's going on with Donald Trump in the States right now. Lower interest rates stimulate growth because it incentivizes consumption. People spend money when you provide more money and pump it into the system, and interest rates are lower. There's less incentive to hold it because you're not making as much interest when you invest it in things. So it's generally better to put it into physical things like a house, or maybe even a piano, something that might retain its value over time because you get more inflation. The government did not explicitly at the time demand policy changes, but distanced itself from the bank's decisions, blaming high rates for economic woes while claiming credit for any easing that took place. And the feud escalated publicly. And really, the old system was vulnerable to abuse by politicians. It had its problems, just like this system does in a way too. The old system referred to a framework where the Bank of Canada operated with limited formal independence from the government. Under the Bank of Canada Act, as it stood then, the bank could lend directly to the federal government at low or even zero interest rates for public financing needs, such as infrastructure or debts. And that was rooted in the bank's original 1934 mandate to support economic stability, including through government advances. But the setup created inherent vulnerabilities to political abuse because it blurred the lines between monetary policy, fiscal policy, and that allowed politicians to exert undue influence for short-term gains. They could basically get their hands on cheap money and put crazy pressures and distortions into the economy because of it. It was essentially, if you want to look at it this way, maybe this is the simplest thing. The difference is the old system was essentially a closed loop, and it was entirely a controlled monetary system, government controlled, no external market forces. It was a system that provided artificially low interest rates for the government itself. That created all kinds of distortions in the economy and inefficiencies, and left it open to all kinds of abuses. The old system was more about government control. Because it provided direct access to financing, artificially low interest rates below what the true cost of money was at the time. And the new way is more free market. It opens everything up to the markets. So instead of just having the bank lend money to the government directly, which is the government sort of lending to itself at rates below market value, now treasury bills, bonds are sold on the open market. And that creates true monetary signals, market signals, back to the economy. The cost to the taxpayers results in higher interest rate payments over time, but it inserts and overlays real market disciplines. It restricts how far a government can actually go with its monetary policy and money printing, because the entire economy becomes subject then to real market forces. And if people don't have confidence in the economy, if your interest rates aren't right, then consumers, or more specifically investors, that would include private banks, it would include other governments, it would include retirement funds, any kind of investor. You could buy, savings bonds, but if the interest rates are not competitive, you won't do it. So they have to react to true market forces. It injects market discipline on borrowing. Governments now must offer competitive interest rates to attract buyers. And if deficits grow unsustainably or inflation risks rise, investors then demand higher yields or refuse to buy, raising borrowing costs. That's why I've been saying with Donald Trump, he's destroying the U.S. economy, because he's destroying confidence in the U.S. economy and in the U.S. dollar. And that is putting everything down there in jeopardy. And right now, Canada's in a much better place than the U.S. because we're seen as still a more trusted trading partner. So that's actually enhancing our position, which is why you've seen our government talking to companies like Hyundai, and they're thinking, yeah, we have an MOU now, a memorandum of understanding, because Hyundai might actually come to Canada and set up shop here and begin to produce vehicles, even in the face of all these tariffs from Donald Trump. And that's because we're seen on the international stage as being a country that is more trustworthy. And so it's really the difference between whether you want a controlled economy, very socialist, a nationalized currency, essentially, or if you believe in the free market. I'm a free market guy, because I know that gets you more efficiencies, more growth by changing the way that money was created and the way that the monetary policies are handled in this country. It opened Canada up to broader capital access and efficiency. Private markets provide deeper pools of savings for government debt. They support larger scale borrowing when it's needed without relying solely on domestic money creation. Because even though you can create or just print the money, you're restricted at that point, if you're just doing it all on your own, to the total GDP or the economic output of the country itself. But if you can attract private investment from private investors, even other countries, corporations, banks, individuals, companies that manage retirement funds, mutual fund management, if you get these companies, BlackRock, okay, your head's blowing up, but that's just a management company that manages all these investments for different, like especially retirement funds. It's your money that's in there. And it just opens up the market to all kinds of additional capital. And that is what has allowed Canada to grow so much faster over time. It's really, it's a complex thing, I know, and I hope that I didn't put you to sleep. But it's not that Phil, and it's not even that these people who advocate for the Comer case today are so wrong. It used to be done that way. But I understand why it's done the way it is done today. And to say that the currency has been hijacked is conspiratorial. It hasn't been hijacked. We have a sovereign currency, and it's demonstrably sovereign because we still control it. It's viable. And we know that it's viable and sustainable because the market tells us so, because people still invest in Canada. There's still demand for the Canadian dollar on the open market, even at 2.25% interest. The treasury bills, the bonds that are issued, the securities that are issued, they still get bought up. If it wasn't sustainable, investors wouldn't be buying the stuff. When they stop buying, and you have to start to increase your interest rates a lot, that's an indication that you've got sustainability problems. We've been there before, and that goes back to the 1970s. It certainly does. But again, that's more complicated. And the inflation that we had in the 1970s was not just because of the shift in monetary policy. There were all kinds of other factors that resulted in massive inflation in the 1970s. Then you're starting to get into the Carter era, the oil shock, OPEC, and just broader economic policies, especially from the United States under Jimmy Carter, that were not efficient. And it just kind of threw everything for a loop. Going to come back, and then I'm going to clarify one other thing before we tap into some of today's other top news stories.
Greetings, brave mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV,
the entire world is watching.
On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
So again, our one of our callers last night, Phil Primo, friend of the channel, sent text to me last night because there was discussion about the percentage of donors that contributed to the Freedom Convoy, and he, pretty concerned about accuracy. So I told him I would clarify, because he said that, what he was saying, that it wasn't 60%. I said, and I may have misspoken a little bit, so I need to clarify. I think I said something like 60% of donations came from U.S. donors, something like that. I can't remember my exact words. In any case, I do want to clarify, because he's not wrong, and I need to clarify what I said. With regard to the 60% figure, it comes from sources like this, well, not even just this source, but it comes from stories like this and sources that are quoted in stories like this. This one from Global, and it's right here. 60% of donors to adopt a trucker Give Send Go page were Canadian, new data leak shows. This is way back in 2022. We're still talking about this in 2026. And this is over on Global. So this is the figure that I'm referring to right here. 60% of donors. And it's not just restricted to this story or even just this. The broader number that I've seen quoted many times is that the percentage of donors that were American is between 55 and 59, was between 55 and 59%. It's an important thing to note because of foreign influence, which we've been talking about with regard to the Alberta separatist movement. And we highlighted that you have a lot of the same players who are at the center of the separatist movement or near the center of the separatist movement, certainly involved out in Alberta, who were involved in the Freedom Convoy, same players. And they keep popping up. It's worth noting. And then you see this U.S. foreign influence coming in, not just here, but at many protests and even out at the ostrich farm, which I keep saying was never really about the ostriches. So it's not that I was like wrong, but but the distinction here, and this is important, I guess, for what it's worth, the distinction is that the 60% or almost 60% figure that I quoted is the percentage of donors, but not necessarily, but that's not reflective of the total percentage of funds that were donated. And so when Phil was quoting numbers, he was referring to total amount of money donated, where I was talking about the number of people with the breakdown of donors. And if I misspoke, I do apologize. So I do want to clarify that. I told him I would do that. And so neither one of us was really wrong. I was just not clear enough. And so I'm being held accountable and providing clarification as I promised I would. The important point from my perspective is that it illustrated this data leak, the reports that we've seen that flowed from all of that information, is that there was U.S. influence, that you had Americans donating to the Freedom Convoy in large numbers, which to me seems odd. But stranger things have happened, I guess, in the world. But we're seeing this. It doesn't make sense to me that percentage of people would donate. Now, Canadians overall did donate more money, and there were millions and millions of dollars that came in. So I don't know. It just the Public Order Emergency Commission didn't find that there was undue foreign influence ultimately. But again, we've seen our politicians and even I think our police services and intelligence services shy away from saying the unspoken part out loud, not really wanting to acknowledge that we have this U.S.-based influence over our politics that has been ongoing at an intensified level, certainly since the pandemic. And it's ongoing, still going on right now. Out in Alberta, we know that those separatists went down to meet with the officials from the State Department, came back. They've talked about it openly. They revealed that they were offered $500 million in some sort of a loan that would be used to finance the separatist efforts out in Alberta. That to me seems entirely inappropriate. And when the British Columbia Premier came out yesterday and said that those kinds of actions are treason, I think it was a pivotal moment uh, for the country. And that really sparked wider debate and touched a nerve yesterday. Our country is on the edge. It is facing an existential threat. These separatists, the ones pushing this movement out there, they're not elected. They're a political activist group. They're clearly tied to Trump and the MAGA administration. I wouldn't necessarily say it is the United States government. It's this government or this administration. It's MAGA. It's the Trump team. They've been at this for a long time, specifically. So it is the United States because he's in charge right now, but they were at it even when they weren't in charge. They were at it during the Freedom Convoy. They're at it right now. And I don't think that David Eby is off the mark at all when he uses the word treason. Not at all. I think, honestly, it's long overdue for people to start speaking plainly about this stuff instead of just kind of trying to ignore it and hoping it will go away, because it's not going away. And then we saw the leader of the Alberta NDP speak yesterday in Ottawa. And of course, the other problem that we have in this country is the people in the freedom movement or whatever could just automatically knee-jerk reaction, reject anything that any politician or anybody associated with any politician who happens to be on the perceived left has to say. And that's a mistake too, as far as I'm concerned. And some of the folks out there just hate them all. So I don't know what the solution is there. If you just reject everything out of hand, that's not going to solve anything either. And everybody is focused on Carney. His approval rating right now is very high. He's viewed as the preferred prime minister substantially by a long margin over Pierre Poilievre. Latest polling, I think, put Carney at 59%. I think Poilievre's down in the 20s from what I saw. Poilievre has to broaden his base of support, broaden his appeal to voters. And he seems to have done that sort of on the, if you want to look at it, left, right, on the right side of the political spectrum. I think he has been able to scoop up some of those People's Party of Canada type supporters, but he has lost the middle ground to Carney. That's why he lost the election. That's why the Conservatives lost the election. They went hard to the right to pick up the PPC type folks, but left the middle ground wide open, and Carney came in and scooped up a lot of the Conservative platform, took that middle ground, and that's why you're seeing even liberals, like people from the Liberal Party and people on the political left, saying that Carney has been acting very much like a conservative. A lot of people over there, if you watch any of the mainstream media, they're saying that this government could easily be a Harper government. And that is true. Because he has cut taxes. He cut the carbon tax, doing what Poilievre said he was going to do. He said, well, okay, well, I'll do it. And then he did it. And people are still like, well, we're still not happy. He's no good. He's a liberal. But he cut the tax. Gas is down here. I paid, I think it was $1.19 the last time I filled up. That's a whole lot less than $1.60, $1.65, $1.70. That's what we were paying under Trudeau. Carney's not Trudeau. And he just announced that this GST, HST tax rebate, that's going to put, up to like $1,000 back in the pockets of a lot of lower and middle income Canadians over the next couple of years. That's another big tax break. That's a very conservative government-esque kind of thing to do. And he did it. He's done it. He announced it. So I'll take the wins. I don't care if he's got an L or a C on his lapel. I don't even care if it's got an NDP. If he's doing fiscally conservative kinds of things, cutting taxes, lowering regulations, cutting bureaucratic red tape, setting up housing policies that will actually build houses, helping people, first-time home buyers get into a home. I'm all for that because that stimulates the economy and builds stronger communities in a stronger country. And that's true fiscal conservatism, not excessive government, waste or regulations. And the Pierre Poilievre's housing plan was punitive. It wasn't incentive-based. It was like, if the municipalities don't approve these building permits, we're going to punish the municipality with these penalties. That was a big part of it. It was like, you have to build these houses and you have to approve them over here. And if you don't, then big penalties for you. It's a kind of a Trump style approach to things, really. Not so Carney. Carney is doing things that I used to see Stephen Harper do as prime minister, a conservative government. They provide incentives. They pull you along with a carrot instead of beating you with a stick. I'd rather be pulled along with the carrot because I'm going to grab that carrot and I'm going to eat it or put it away for a rainy day till it not eat it because it'll go rotten. So yeah, it's that's my view. I really don't care what party they're with. I'm judging these guys by their actions. And you can't trust them. I'm not saying you should. I don't trust any of them either. I don't really trust Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre or any of them. None of them. We shouldn't. You don't need to. You need to hold them accountable at the ballot box and with comments and with protests, peaceful where appropriate. You need to exercise your democratic rights. You need to exercise your agency. Take part. Get involved. Go out to these conventions like we're going to show you here very shortly out in Calgary. Get involved with the political parties. Have your say. Get your 2 cents worth in when they're developing the party platforms. Participate. Don't just sit on the sidelines and be a spectator and then complain afterward. And protesting isn't enough. If you really want to affect change, I keep saying, get involved in one of the political parties, and then whatever you want, you just push forward those ideas and try to get the party to adopt those as a plank in the overall platform as they head into an election and they campaign on those things. And then those planks in the party platform become party policies. And then that turns into legislation. And then you get what you want. That's the way it works. That's what they're doing out in Calgary right now at the CPC convention, while they review Pierre Poilievre's leadership. And who the heck knows? Will he remain as leader? Yeah, he's gonna, because they want him and they've installed him. And the UCP controls, I think, largely the Conservative Party right now. They've really controlled it, I think, since the ousting of Aaron O'Toole as the leader and the installment of Pierre Poilievre. And that's one of the reasons there's no love lost between the federal Conservatives and the Ontario Conservatives under Doug Ford, the provincial government in Ontario. They don't like each other. That's why I think the Ontario Conservative Party is holding its convention this weekend too, in conflict, in competition with the convention out in Calgary for the federal Conservative Party. So there's a lot going on there behind the scenes that we're not even really privy to, but you can read between the lines. And I wish I could be a fly on the wall in some of these meetings that they're having and these behind the scenes discussions to find out, what do these people really think of each other? Why are they feuding? Why do they hate each other so much? Doug Ford asked about Pierre Poilievre and the convention, and he really just kind of refused to comment on it during a media scrum. And so, he knows that he has to be careful what he says as well, because even though the parties and the people at the center of both the provincial Conservatives and the federal Conservatives, the people who can really control things there, well, they're fighting. They know that they share a base of support. So Doug Ford has to be very careful about what he says and does. So he was using nuanced language. Let's take a little break. We'll come back on the other side. And soon we will go to Calgary for live coverage of Pierre Poilievre's big speech tonight.
Maverick News isn't just a news outlet, it's a community of truth seekers. Your donation at freedomreporters.com fuels our mission to report the stories that mainstream media won't touch. Thank you, Maverick family.
So before we go to the CPC convention, let's go to Melanie Joly. Federal government responding to Trump's threat to not certify Canadian or decertify Canadian aircraft and escalates the trade war. Here's her response tonight.
It is our understanding that the certification process is well underway and that the certification demands were absolutely recent. So meanwhile, the certification process is something that we don't politicize. Things are done in a really, how can I say, in an administrative manner. But what I can tell you is our government wants to cut more red tape, wants to take decisions faster. There's frustration towards the fact that sometimes decisions are too long. So we'll make sure that we get to the bottom of this question. It is our understanding that
It's getting rocky out there. Not just in the aviation industry, but in the auto industry too, because we saw workers at General Motors Oshawa plant today laid off. A lot of this because of the trade war. I think Melanie Joly commented on that too. Let me see if I can find that clip. Here we go. Melanie Joly, where'd you go? I want to know what you say about GM. Here it is, right here. We've got her, Industry Minister Melanie Joly, on the job cuts at GM Oshawa. Sorry for the delay. Lots of things to click to get Melanie up, and here we go.
Presence here in Canada after the cuts at Ingersoll. So, well, listen, the loss of jobs in Oshawa is completely unacceptable. It's twice in 6 months that GM is cutting down its workforce presence here in Canada after the cuts at Ingersoll. So I had a meeting yesterday with people from GM, and I told them that we would be getting our money back. And meanwhile, if GM doesn't want to continue to invest more in Canada, well, we will invest in more in other players, and we'll fight for these workers, and we'll find them jobs. And so Honda and Toyota are investing more in Canada. The new RAV4 by Toyota was launched last week. They haven't made one layoff in nearly 40 years. They are 70% of our production. And so I think that it's good that Canadians support those who support us. And we're actively working to get more automakers to Canada, and we're definitely working to get Hyundai and Volkswagen and Chinese automakers to make sure that they're creating jobs across Ontario and across the country.
Okay. Anybody got a problem with that? But you can't do it, Rick, because Donald Trump won't like it. So what? I don't care. You do what you do. You do what you got to do to survive, man. And if he doesn't want to play with us, then he should just, I don't know, go play someplace else, because he's going to do it anyway. There's nothing you can do. So you do what you can control. That's what Carney said, right? Sorry, but what you gonna do when you live in a shoe? If someone takes your shoe, you go find another shoe, I guess. Let's just look in the chat here. What we got going on? Hello, Jubilee, Norfa. The Rising Dragon. Hello, Maureen. Oh, yeah, all the usual suspects are in there. There's Serge. Millhouse for PM. Jubilee says Ford is a zombie, dude. Doogie. And Serge says, is that Betty Ford? Are you referring to Melanie Jolie? And oh, there it is. Right. I was thinking about that. Ian Dragon says JT would have been better off with Melanie Jolie, instead of Katy Perry. Man, I can't tell you how many people, especially women for some reason, kept saying to me when Trudeau was still in office that he was having an affair with Melanie Jolie. And it was just infuriating to some of these women that would talk to me sometimes about politics. And I'm like, I don't know. That was the rumor. I never really actually believed that at all. I thought, no, Melanie Jolie is too smart for that. There's no way. What does she want with that guy? Are you guys excited about Katy Perry and JT and their discussions about having a love child? Oh, God help us all. That's all I can say. Okay, so do we have a feed yet coming out of Calgary? Let me just check here. I don't think they're live yet on the feed. Where's Pierre Poilievre? Hello, Pierre. No, don't have the feed. Let me just double check over here. I'll tell you what, we'll take a little break. We'll come back. I know that he's due to start speaking very, 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 very soon. Do not go away.
Greetings, brave mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So Dragon, you're still going on about this Melanie Jolie thing and JT? He says, I knew he had an affair with Jolie. It's one reason that Trudeau's wife is divorced. I don't think that's what it was. I don't think so. Jubilee says Freeland, Rick. No, that never happened. She's married and she wouldn't want anything to do with him either. No, do you want me to tell you? Really? What went on? I know this for sure. I shouldn't say for sure because, but many, many, many reports of this. I have to remember the guy's name. He's an actor. And Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, she had a fling with this man. I got to look up this guy's name. I can't remember. Isran. what's the guy's name? Idris Elba. So technically, there's no official confirmation of it, but all kinds of tabloid chatter. Do you know who he is? Let's get a picture of Idris Elba. There it is. Here we are. Oh, how lifestyles of the rich and famous. Here he is, Idris Elba. Should we be running the True Spiracies intro before we start talking about this? There he is there. Idris Elba attends Apple TV's Hijack Season 2 screening at Whitby Hotel. So Sir Idrissa Acuna Elba is an English actor, DJ, and rapper. He has received a Golden Globe Award as well as nominations for 3 BAFTA Awards and 6 Emmy Awards. He was named in the Time 100 list of the most influential people in the world in 2016. Born September 6, 1972, now aged 53 years of age, in London, United Kingdom. Upcoming movies, Masters of the Universe, High in the Clouds, Sonic the Hedgehog 4, and Sonic the Hedgehog 4, Children of Blood and Bone. His spouse is Sabrina Daura Elba and Sonia Nicole Hamlin, 2006, and then Hanny Norgard, 1999 to 2003. And somehow he managed to fit Sophie Gregoire Trudeau in there. Just squeezed her in somehow, or so some people say. So I think, honestly, Dragon, I think maybe that's where the fire is creating the smoke that you've seen. You go look it up. I'll leave the rest of the research to you guys on that one. And then you come back and tell me, is it truth or conspiracy? Or just a true spiracy?
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Before we get started with the festivities and the Pierre Poilievre speech, further to this Comer thing and the related discussions that took place yesterday about inflation. And I kept saying inflation is relative. I'm sitting in proof of that here tonight. My father, my mother, my son, they're all living proof of what I spoke of last night with regard to inflation. It's all relative. You see, this house that I sit in, just after it was built, sold, my parents bought this place for $17,500, a house. But back in those days, 1970s, early 70s, people were working like you'd make maybe $9,000 a year. That's what the wages were. And you could buy a car for like $3,000, brand new. But everything was relative, right? Things were a lot less expensive. The prices were lower. The number was lower, but so were the wages. Fast forward to today, this house, because prices have increased so much, is now worth, I won't tell you exactly how much. My son's buying this house from my parents. It's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they put their money into a mortgage over time. And because of inflation, the price of the house rose over time. And so you see, by putting their money into a mortgage and living in the house, they built up equity, which is a word that's thrown around. I saw Donald Trump throw it around just today. I don't think people even understand what the word means half the time when they use it. You earn equity. You build up equity over time by paying down your mortgage, and you own the house in the end. So my parents own this house. So they're selling it to my son. It's now worth a lot of money. But it's all relative. If they had to turn around and buy another house, then they would have to spend an equivalent amount of money. A house is worth what a house is worth. Do you see what I'm saying? But wages today are much higher. The trick, or at least what governments are supposed to do, is have wages keep pace with inflation. And you, as an individual, need to manage your funds properly so that you don't let inflation eat up your equity and your savings over time. So if interest rates are very, very low, but inflation is high, you don't just leave your money sitting in a savings account earning a very low interest rate when inflation is higher than that, because you're losing money when it sits in the bank. You need to invest your money in something, put it in something that's going to give you a higher rate of return, or at least keep pace with inflation. And a house, generally speaking, keeps pace with inflation. So over time, over many, many years, 20, 30, 40 years, you pay off the mortgage, you're building up equity. Now my parents are retiring. They're selling the house. They're liquidating the equity in the house that has been built up over many years. They're converting that into cash. The cash from the sale of the home, which is coming from my son, who now has a new mortgage, so he can build up equity over time. The equity from all those years goes into my parents' bank account. That gives them more money for their retirement. And it's not, and even though inflation appears like inflation has created much, much higher prices. So even though the house originally sold for $17,500, was purchased for that, and today it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, all prices are in line with that. It's all relative, you see. That's what I mean by relative. Prices are higher, but wages are higher. Prices are higher, but if you've had your money in investments and mutual funds and the stock market and bonds or treasury bills, government securities, whatever your investment is, as long as you've put it in something that keeps pace with inflation or is above, you are okay. You put it in a house and you're okay. And that's what so many boomers and older folks out there are doing now. They're living off the accumulated equity in their homes. That's why you have reverse mortgages. And so the notion that inflation makes everything unsustainable is actually incorrect. It has to be handled properly. Governments need to handle these things properly. And in a real world experience, which I'm just sharing with you right now, it works. It works. But you have highs and lows and boom and bust periods in all sectors of the economy. And right now in Canada, there's more demand than supply for houses. So housing prices are up high. It's hard for people to get in as an entry-level buyer. So there are all these challenges, but we've been here before, and we'll solve this, and then we'll move on, and then we're going to get here again at some point. It's all relative. Hey, there's an idea for a song by Maverick and the News Brothers. I don't have it made. It's not a segue into a song for that, but maybe we should play a song while we wait for Pierre Poilievre to come up on stage. I have the feed established. Give me a minute here or two to make sure that everything is rock solid and flowing smoothly over the internet so that we can bring you this live feed from Calgary and the Conservative Party of Canada convention, where Pierre Poilievre is about to amp things up. How about a little Captain Ass Kicker?
Y'all better stand back. He's laced up his boots, cracked open a cold one, and somebody's about to get it. C-A-K! Well, he rolls into town on a Harley so loud with a star stars and stripes, cape and a jaw like a plow. Don't need no laser beams, no high-tech tricks. He just winds up that boot and lets it fly real quick. He kicks ass to the left, kicks ass to the right. Captain Ass Kicker's looking for a fight. From sundown to sunrise, he'll brawl and bite. 'Cause Captain Ass Kicker is alright. He's the outlaw hero of this one-horse town, putting punks in their place, laying bad guys down. Ain't no Cape Crusader wearing tights and blush, just a trucker hat and a boot full of hush. He kicks ass in the morning, kicks ass at night. CAK don't care if you're wrong or right. You run your mouth, he's quick to ignite. Yeah, Captain Ass Kicker is dive right. He don't fly, he don't swing from no thread. He'll just kick your ego straight out of your head. Justice don't come with a judge and a gavel. It comes with a boot and a trail of gravel. He's banned from 6 states and a Waffle House, but the people still cheer when he clears the louds. He don't play nice, don't read no script. He just cocked his foot. Oh, they're at rip. He kicks ass in the east, kicks ass in the west. CAK don't sleep, he don't need rest. If there's trouble brewing, he's your invite. Captain Ass Kicker is bringing the fight. So when the night gets rough and the law's too slow, you better call on the man with a steel-toed glow. Captain Ass Kicker kicking ass since the day he learned to walk.
I was just looking in the chat there about inflation. Yeah, prices are too high. We're still suffering because numbnuts flew around the world handing out money, Canadian money, when he became Prime Minister Trudeau. And then we had the pandemic, and I said, no, stop, don't do it. Don't print all that money. We don't need that stimulus. Don't do it. Just don't lock us down. I was surprised the economy even survived what Trudeau did at the time. We're still suffering and paying the price for that. But you know what that showed me? Honestly, even though you had this incompetent twit beating the living crap out of the economy and spending money like it was going out of style, doubling the debt, in the face of all of that, even though I saw some stresses and shortages of some things for a short time in grocery stores, we came through it. I was like, I don't know if the country can survive. I don't know if the economy can survive this. I thought this is going to lead to a depression, but it didn't. And that showed me that the Canadian economy, the U.S. economy too, is much tougher, more resilient than I thought. The supply chains were there. Canadians stepped up too, did the jobs that needed to be done to keep things at least functioning, even though we had politicians making huge mistakes and inflicting all this damage. And the prices, they haven't come down since then, and we're still paying the price for that. But the current inflation rate is, still just a little above 2%, I believe, which is the target. So they've wrestled it back down, but it's going to take some time still for things to stabilize. So I'm with you. It's still too much money when you go to the grocery store. I've been taking my parents shopping. I stroll down those aisles, I look at those prices and I'm like, oh, yeah, just enough to give you a heart attack, and you don't need to eat anything with cholesterol in it. So it's true. Prices are still too high, but they've stopped increasing as much as they were. And so we're getting back to more stability. The problem too, and this is the other thing, is Trump. Because his economic policies, these tariffs, they're inflationary, both in the United States and Canada. This trade war is increasing inflation. Governor of the Bank of Canada addressed that this week when he announced the overnight rate to 2.25%. He said, nothing they can do with monetary policy can really correct the structural damage that Donald Trump is inflicting on the economies with these tariffs. Tariffs are a huge tax. When he talks about these billions of dollars being collected and boasting about it, that's not money that's going to the people. That's not money into anybody's pocket except the government's in the United States. And he's collecting those funds really from American taxpayers, and it's hurting Canada because we're selling less to the United States. So he's boasting about collecting all this money, but it really isn't doing any good for most people. And then because he's collecting the cash, he gets to decide what, if any, is distributed or redistributed to the people or companies, corporations, his big oligarch friends, whomever he chooses to give it to. It's another tool that he uses, or another way that he takes control of the economy. And even if you go back and look at what went on during the pandemic, that's all about government control of the economy. The government decided they were going to stimulate the economy, said, okay, keep everybody home, give out a whole bunch of free money, encourage consumption, drive up inflation with reduced economic output. That's a recipe for huge inflation. It took some time for it to kick in, but it did, and now we're still paying for it. But that's not the free market. That's not the result of free market forces. Well, it is inevitable. The natural law of economics, the laws of economics kick in, and regardless of what government does, you can't escape those. That's why we got inflation. But to just sit there and blame our own government, it's not just our government, it's the stupidity of Trudeau for doing what he did, but it's also Trump and other governments around the world too, because they were all doing it at the time. And we've seen this quantitative easing going on worldwide for decades now. And they're irresponsible about it. And yet through it all, we've somehow managed to survive. Let's take a look at the feed. Here we are. We're almost ready. Mr. Poilievre, where are you? We're waiting for you. No audio yet. Okay. Are you seeing him on the screen? Yeah, you are. There he is. He's in there somewhere. No, it's backstage. So what are you guys thinking? Mr. Poilievre. People frustrated out there, so many people saying, well, we're never going to, these people in Alberta in particular saying that we'll never elect a conservative government, so we just need to separate. And I don't believe that for a moment. We've seen this happen before. The right, so-called right, fractured, Reform Party, Conservative Party, over time, you ended and wound up with the Canadian Alliance, and then the Unite the Right movement, and the formation ultimately of the new Conservative Party of Canada, which is what we have now. You saw what happened with Harper. He got elected, but then Trudeau comes along. But is that to say that you're never going to elect a conservative government again? No, I don't believe that. Of course you can. It can happen, but
Hi, greetings from Cypress Hill, Saskatchewan. I'm Brad Wall.
I think you gotta.
I hope it's not lost on us.
You need a better campaign.
That the precious few examples of action, positive action from the Liberal government are the result of them copying ideas from Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party. A couple of examples, the GST on new homes, and very significant for those of us in Saskatchewan who fought the carbon tax from day one, the end of the consumer-facing carbon tax. These examples underscore the point that in the run-up to the last election and during the campaign, we had from Pierre Poilievre and his team principled conservative leadership, offering principled conservative policies that were aimed at affordability, that were aimed at economic competitiveness. And when it was all said and done, obviously the end result wasn't what we all wanted, but it was as close as we've been in many elections. Under Pierre Poilievre's conservative leadership, his principled conservative leadership, the party achieved more electoral success than it had in a very long time. That's why we as a party are in a good position right now. That's why I believe as a party, we need to continue to offer the same kind of leadership, the same kind of principled conservative alternatives, the same ideas around affordability, the same ideas around the economic health of our country. And we need to do it effectively, as Mr. Poilievre has done to date, to garner more and more support until we get to that conservative election win and real change and much needed change for this country.
Hello, fellow Conservatives. We are at a very important moment in our party. Right now, our party needs a leader who is a true, authentic Conservative and also a masterful political operative. Somebody who can communicate clearly, think strategically, and connect with how Canadians are really feeling. We have that person in Pierre Poilievre. Pierre has one of the sharpest political minds in the country. He knows how to craft a message that resonates, and he understands the hard work and the commitment that it takes to win. He doesn't feel entitled to the job, and that's really important because we are in a tough fight and there's no magic wand. To use a hockey analogy, Pierre is our best enforcer and he's also our best goal scorer. And Pierre knows how to be which one in order to win. Just as importantly, Pierre knows how to surround himself and is surrounding himself with other leaders who will bring out the best in him, who will complement his strengths and bring him balance. Without hesitation, I support Pierre Poilievre. He is the right person to lead our party and to lead our country. As you know, I have served each one of our leaders as both a member of parliament and, like many of you, as a volunteer. So my opinion comes with some experience. I support Pierre. I ask you to do the same.
Hello to Conservatives from across Canada. My name is Abhi Khan and I am the leader of the Manitoba Progressive Conservative Party. The threats and challenges facing Canada at this moment are substantial. We are facing issues that are unheard of in a modern democracy. But Pierre is a fighter. He will not quit. He works hard for Canadians. He works hard for single parents, children, and people who simply need a chance in life. Manitobans believe in a united Canada and leadership that stands up for Canadian families, farmers, and small businesses. Together, with Pierre as our leader, we must work to put Canada back on track, to build a stronger future for Canadian families and all future generations.
Bonjour, mes amis. I'm retired Lieutenant General Michel Maisonneuve, and I'm happy to be here with you at our Conservative Convention. Today, I'm angry, though, that Canada is still a mess after 11 years of Liberal rule, and the future is bleak. Mark Carney reminds me of an Obama version 2, all talk and travel but no action. We need our Conservative Party to remain united, and that starts at the top. Pierre Poilievre is our leader, and he is the leader that Canada needs today. He has shown he's a warrior who will not give up, and I know he can put Canada on the right path. As you've seen in polls, young Canadians have come to understand it, and they are behind him 100%. And so it's time for all of us Conservatives to recognize this and to silence the doubters. Nous avons besoin d'un leader fort et d'un parti uni sous son leadership. Ce leader est notre chef Pierre Poilievre. Il est celui qui peut rebâtir le Canada après 11 ans de dégâts libéraux et donner de l'espérance à nos citoyens et nos citoyennes. Il a démontré sa résilience et son ardeur et il n'arrêtera jamais de travailler pour nous et pour le Canada. United under Pierre's leadership, we can show that we are ready to govern, to fix our country with concrete results, and to retake our place as a strong power in the world. Let's bring hope back to all Canadians by standing united behind Pierre Poilievre. I strongly believe that he is the Prime Minister we need right now. Merci beaucoup.
Hello, everyone. Peter MacKay here in Nova Scotia, and I'm very sorry I can't be with you in Calgary, Alberta, for the big shindig and the Conservative Convention this weekend. But I wanted to share a few words about my friend, Pierre Poilievre, the leader of our party, somebody who I've known for over 25 years. I've seen Pierre as a parliamentarian, of course, in the House of Commons. I've seen him all around the country, and over the last number of years, as our leader, I know he's been working extremely hard to make the case to Canadians. And Canada, make no mistake, is Pierre's cause. He's passionate about politics, representation, and wanting to govern in a way that will bring our country to its greatness, to its potential, to the prosperity that Canadians should enjoy. You know, I think we all need to remember that in spite of the loss in the last election, there were tremendous gains made, both in seat count and popularity, and we came so close. And the policies themselves could not have been wrong, because we've seen the government basically borrow every policy that has been successful. The difference being that they don't implement them, they only announce them. We need the real deal. We need authentic leadership. And that's what Pierre represents. Pierre has truly become one of the most effective leaders of the opposition that I have ever seen. He prosecutes the government in a fair and factual way, but that's not the job that we need him in. And I remind us all that in 2004, under the leadership of Stephen Harper, we lost that election. And of course, it was disappointing. And many were throwing criticism and shade at Stephen Harper the same way that we're seeing it directed towards Pierre. But Stephen Harper went on to become one of the best prime ministers our country has ever had. And I believe Pierre has that same potential. Pierre is somebody who is going to bring forward policies in the resource sector with respect to criminal justice initiatives, which I'm very passionate about. And he's somebody who I believe has the greatest potential to bring our country back. And so this leadership review is extremely important. I believe that Pierre will do what Stephen Harper did, and that is emerge victorious in the next election and take our country to a better place. And so I wish you all the very best in Calgary this weekend. I wish I could be there. I hope to see you all again soon.
Hi, everyone. I am so proud of our Conservative movement and so proud of our leader, Pierre. Every day he fights for a Canada where everyone has a chance to succeed. It's time we show Canadians that we will never give up and that they can count on us. By uniting behind our leader, a fighter who takes every challenge head on, we will show Canadians that we can bring change to this great country.
I want to take a moment to speak to Conservatives from across Canada. You know as well as I, being a Conservative isn't always the easy path, but it's the right one. Our principles rooted in freedom, hard work, and personal responsibility don't let us bend or break, chasing what's popular in the moment. They ground and anchor us to do what's right and what's true. As Conservatives, we expect our leaders to stay true to these values while acting in the best interest of all Canadians. To do so takes strong leadership. Leadership with moral clarity, with a plan to restore Canada's economic leadership, to return Canada to an international economic engine, a stalwart defender of global freedom, and a place that holds true to the promise that if you work hard, you can get ahead. That is exactly the kind of leadership the Conservative Party of Canada has under Pierre Poilievre. Pierre is not just a friend, a father, and a proud Canadian. He is a champion of our beliefs. When the going gets tough, we've seen time and time again, Pierre Poilievre doesn't flinch. He charges forward to do what is right for Canadians. Principled leadership is a rare commodity. Pierre embodies it, and he has my full, unwavering support to continue leading the Conservative Party of Canada. I ask you to join me, and let's finish what we started.
Good evening, everybody. How is everybody feeling tonight? I think we can do a little bit better than that. How is everybody feeling tonight? It is so good to be here together as one Conservative family. It feels so good. I am Sandra Cobena, a proud Conservative Member of Parliament for Newmarket, Aurora.
Bonsoir. I am Gaétan Mallette, the Conservative Member of Parliament, et je suis Gaétan Mallette, député conservateur de la circonscription de Kapuskasing, Timmins et Mushkegowuk.
We are two new Conservative members of Parliament from distinct ridings, but both ridings represented key flips from the Liberals and the NDP to the Conservatives.
My riding is made from two ridings, both of which were held by the New Democrats. Mon comté est issu de la fusion de deux circonscriptions, toutes deux détenues par le NPD. This was traditional NDP territory, with much of either riding not being won by Conservatives in decades, with some not ever. It's fair to say that this is a blue-collar riding full of people who work hard and believe in Canada and everything that this country has to offer. But they recognize that now the Conservative Party under Pierre Poilievre is the only party that represents that hope for the future of Canada. Pierre spoke to them directly. He spoke to their beliefs in hard work and in the amazing project that is this country. And they believe in him. Let me tell you a quick story. The Member of Parliament I was running to unseat was Charlie Angus of the NDP. He held an event in Kirkland Lake one evening which brought just 18 people out. The next day, we held a meet and greet with Pierre that blew the doors off the town. We were hoping for 250 people to show up. Well, we got more than 500.
Okay, hold on. That was more than 500 people in Northern Ontario. That deserves a louder applause.
Thank you, Sandra. It was so big that Angus tweeted it must have been AI. But let me tell you, it wasn't AI. An old-timer from the riding who has seen a thing or two around Kirkland Lake came up to me and told me that, and I quote, "The last time we had an event like this was with Diefenbaker. Diefenbaker.
I guess I'm going to be an old timer. I was just talking about
years ago.
Dief.
For a lot of young people here. That's
so
more than
old.
half a century. Now, that's the excitement that Pierre has created in writings like mine. He's spoken directly to the hearts and souls of hardworking Canadians across this country who believe, and they are still standing strong with him. Il s'est adressé directement au cœur et à l'âme des Canadiens et Canadiennes qui travaillent fort partout au pays et qui croient en lui et continuent de le soutenir avec conviction.
You know, I never thought that there would be a place for someone like me in politics. I am an immigrant who came to Canada with nothing. And I mean nothing. We just had the clothes in our bags. I am a mother of 3, a finance professional on Bay Street. But after a decade of failed Liberal policies, I came at a crossroads. I saw the challenges that our country was facing. And I saw Pierre Poilievre, a leader who understood the hardworking Canadians who felt unseen and left behind by elitist politicians. A leader who loves the ordinary Canadians he so proudly calls extraordinary. I heard about he travels this country night after night and still stays until the last handshake, the last conversation. And I came to know him as someone who carries the weight of those conversations and turns them into his mission to restore the promise of Canada. And so I started to ask myself a question. Could I leave the finance world and fight for a better country for my kids, for our kids? And so I did. Just like more than 8 million Canadians, I joined Pierre's mission to restore the promise of Canada in my own way. In a tough Liberal-held riding, and it was a tough Liberal-held riding, our team knocked on over 100,000 doors. We visited every single home. We visited every single home, not once, not twice, 3 times. I saw his leadership up close. Pierre came to Newmarket, Aurora, and we toured businesses around the GTA. And let me tell you, when Pierre shows up, he doesn't just take a few photos and disappears. He knocks. He listens. He stays. With Pierre, the work doesn't stop when the cameras turn off. He met voters who understood that he represents hope and true belief in our country. They are united behind Pierre, much as we are in the Conservative Party of Canada tonight. And you know what happened next in my riding? Conservatives won Newmarket, Aurora.
We're lucky to have such a courageous young woman, Sandra. Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Tonight, we have the great honor of introducing Pierre Poilievre, the leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition and the Conservative Party of Canada. As a member of Parliament and former minister, he helped the previous Conservative government cut taxes, balance budgets, deliver affordable homes, and crack down on crime and corruption. Ce soir, nous avons le grand honneur de vous présenter Pierre Poilievre, chef de la loyale opposition de Sa Majesté et du Parti conservateur du Canada.
Pierre has spent his career fighting for Canadians, fighting against massive money printing deficits that led to inflation and the affordability crisis, fighting for tougher laws to tackle crime, fighting to help those struggling with addiction, fighting to unlock Canadian resources. But the reality is, he has only begun. So, ladies and gentlemen, please turn your eyes to the screens.
Mesdames et messieurs, veuillez porter votre attention vers les écrans.
This moment isn't about politics. It's about the people who build this country. The ones who get up early, work hard, and are still overlooked. For too long, Canadians have been told to wait, to settle, to believe nothing can change. But real change doesn't start in Ottawa or fancy boardrooms. It starts by listening on the street, in the stores, in the quiet conversations that never make the news. En regardant chaque personne droit dans les yeux et en partageant ses rêves, le changement est possible grâce aux gens qui refusent d'abandonner. We fight for Canadians who have fallen and fought their way back. People written off and left behind, not with excuses, not with empty promises, but with the hope that everyone deserves a chance at the Canadian dream. Our party fights for a generation that did everything right and still feels ignored. Des jeunes Canadiens qui ont étudié, travaillé fort, économisé et respecté toutes les règles, mais qui se demandent s'ils vont un jour être capables de s'acheter une maison pour fonder une famille. They're not asking for shortcuts, just a fair shot at the life they were promised. We fight for families working longer hours, stretching every dollar to put food on the table. We fight for those who served Canada with honor, the men and women in uniform who stood up for this country and now ask their country to stand up for them. On se bat pour l'avenir de nos enfants et de nos petits-enfants, pour qu'ils puissent grandir ici, fonder leur propre famille et vivre dans la liberté, la sécurité et l'espoir, pour qu'ils puissent croire à notre pays. This is why we take principled stands, even when it's hard, even when it's unpopular. We fight even though it is a sacrifice for our family, even when we miss our kids, even when we are on the road. But our love for them keeps us going, never giving up, because the future of our children and yours is worth every sacrifice. Parce que quand on se bat pour des gens qui ont le cœur à la bonne place, on ne recule jamais, on n'abandonne jamais, même quand c'est difficile. That's how we defend our values. That's how we change this country. That's how we fight and win for every Canadian. With your help, we're going to win the next election. We're going to restore Canada's promise and bring hope to all of our people. Together, we will build a country that works for every Canadian.
Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, je vous présente my husband, the next Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Poilievre.
Did you see the sticker on the beak of that guy's hat? Why do people leave the stickers on their hats? If you have an answer, leave it in the chat. I'd like to know. Well, I think that the outcome of all this is predetermined, as you can see. Is the success of Poilievre tonight in question at all? No. It's a rally. He will be the leader tomorrow.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Merci Anna, l'amour de ma vie, the mother of my two beautiful children, Valentina and Cruz. And most of all, thank you to the great grassroots conservatives who work and unite here today. And welcome to my hometown of Calgary. Conservatives from all over the country. Who's excited to be in Calgary in January? We're tough, we can take it. A little bit of regional advice for our Atlantic friends. Try the steak, not the seafood. For those of you from the Eastern Prairies, sorry to block your view with the mountains. To our friends in Toronto, enjoy your time outside of the center of the universe. I love seeing so many conservatives in one place, but it must freak the Liberals out enough to invoke the Emergencies Act. But truly, it's great to be home, in the beating heart of the West, a land filled with treasure, a land of oil and honey. The place that taught me my great values, opportunity as big as the sky, where a handshake and a word is a man's bond, and where a hard day's work is its own sermon. My parents taught me the value of a dollar here in Calgary. My mother could sure stretch one. She's here over there. And she could stretch a dollar, that's for sure. My mother was one of those people who would literally drive clear across town to use one of those coupons to save half price on breakfast. And my dad would have me up at 5 in the morning to deliver newspapers. We weren't rich, but life was good. That was the deal. Work hard, start anywhere, get anywhere. That's what the country promised us all. A hopeful life, a safe home, a full table, a family you love, a flag that united. That's the country that we love. We call it the Canadian Promise, the deal. The professors might call it the social contract. And the people have kept their part of that bargain. Working hard, spending less, following the rules. But unfortunately, the government has not kept its part of the bargain. Right now, as we gather, families are struggling to do the math. Young people are wondering if they'll ever have a job or a home. Worried parents are sitting at kitchen tables with empty fridges and empty bank accounts. And seniors worry that their savings might not last as long as their days. This Liberal government doesn't just leave people behind, it prices and shuts out youth from homes, workers from jobs, and families from groceries. Simply put, Canadians cannot afford life under the Liberal government. The government is literally the biggest item in a family budget today. It takes up more money than food, clothing, and shelter combined. The cost of government is driving up the cost of living. Taxes and record money-printing deficits are inflating everything. And it's no coincidence, therefore, that as the Liberal government doubled the debt, housing costs and food bank lineups doubled at the very same time. Now, they promised that all these deficits were going to lead to investments. You know, it's kind of like the old magicians who said that they could turn lead into gold. But those deficits never became investments. In fact, Canada has had the worst investment and the worst growth in the G7 over the last 10 years. Amazingly, Canadian citizens, this is an incredible fact, Canadian citizens now open more businesses in the United States of America than they do in their home country. That's elbows out. And taxpayers spend more on federal debt interest than on health care. That's more money for bondholders and bankers than for nurses and doctors. Liberal laws have unleashed crime. Out of control, open borders, immigration has overwhelmed health care, housing, and job markets. Cancel culture and identity politics divide Canadians. Separatist movements are reawakened. After 10 years of Liberal rule, Canada is more costly and crime-ridden, dangerous and dependent and divided than ever before. Now, Mr. Carney, he promised to change all that. But here we are a year later. You know, what's changed? Sure, the words have changed, the style has changed, but what's changed in your life, really? Well, let's go down the list. The illusion, Mr. Carney said he would spend less. He's spending $90 billion more, and he doubled the deficit that he inherited. The illusion, Mr. Carney said, a country that cannot feed itself has few options. Well, food inflation has doubled under his watch, and it's the worst in the G7. Groceries will cost the average family an almost unimaginable $17,600 this year. That's after-tax money. The illusion, build, baby, build. The reality has been block, baby, block. He hasn't got rid of a single anti-development law or bureaucracy. The No-Do Pipelines law, still here. And by the way, speaking of pipelines, how many of them are approved? Zero. Il y a 10 ans, avant l'arrivée des libéraux, le contrat social, le deal, c'était qu'en travaillant fort, on pouvait gagner un bon vie, un bon salaire pour s'acheter une belle maison et fonder une famille. Mais aujourd'hui, vivre au Canada coûte plus cher et M. Carney a promis qu'il serait jugé par l'épicerie. Le résultat, le Canada a la pire inflation alimentaire parmi le G7 et la famille moyenne va devoir dépenser presque 18 000 $ pour se nourrir cette année. M. Carney a doublé le déficit qu'il a hérité pendant que vos taxes et vos impôts continuent d'augmenter. Les jeunes ne peuvent plus acheter une maison. Avec les libéraux, le Canada est devenu une nation de locataires, pas une nation de propriétaires. M. Carney a promis du changement, mais bien sûr, il a changé le ton, le style, les mots. Mais depuis qu'il est devenu Premier ministre, est-ce que les choses ont vraiment changé dans votre vie? Est-ce que ça coûte moins cher? Je sais que M. Carney aime bien faire des grands discours autour du monde lorsqu'il force les Canadiens à payer plus ici. C'est clair. M. Carney, c'est un grand parleur ailleurs, mais un petit faiseur chez nous. So I've got a funny paradox for you. I've got a bit of a funny paradox for you. He imposes taxes and red tape on home building, resource development, and businesses. Then he creates new bureaucracies to subsidize home building, resource development, and businesses. He taxes food production, and then he creates new programs for food subsidies. In every case, he blocks and taxes a thing, and then subsidizes that same thing. As President Reagan says, if a liberal sees something that moves, he taxes it. If it keeps moving, he regulates it. And when it stops moving, he subsidizes it. But why not just get out of the way and let things move? Well, because then there'd be no role for him. No photo op, no power. If everyone could just get up and do great things without him, he would be less relevant. The government would be less important. This way, you have to give him your money and then come ask for some of it back. And he can claim that he's building the thing that he's blocking. The cost of the benefit is seen in the form of his photo ops and political power, but the cost is paid by the homeowner who can't build a home, the carpenter who never gets a job building it, and the family that never gets to move in, or the entrepreneur who never launches the business, or the senior who, because of all these extra costs, has to choose between eating and heating. These costs are so often unseen, and even more often, so too are the people paying them. But my message to those people who have felt unseen for too long, who are carrying the country on their back and feel underappreciated and overworked, Conservatives see you, and Conservatives will fight for you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The people need the government off their backs, out of their way, and by their sides. And when I become Prime Minister, these great Canadians will not need to ask my permission to succeed. Business will get ahead by having the best product, not the best lobbyist, by pleasing customers, not pleasing politicians. I love you too. Thank you. We have the most amazing patriots, the most amazing people in this party. Thank God for the grassroots of the Conservative Party. And the great people of our country are, as I go around and I meet the people of this country, and I spend half my time doing that and half my time on Parliament Hill, it's become very clear to me that the common people, not the ordinary people, the extraordinary people, they have all the wisdom and the virtue to make their own decisions and run their own lives. They don't need to be bossed around by government. Our government is here to do its job. Only the things that people can't do for themselves, not run your life. In fact, if I were starting a new political party from scratch, I'm not. But if I were, it would be called the Mind Your Own Damn Business Party. It would be. That includes respecting the constitutional jurisdiction of our provinces and getting the federal government to butt out of the affairs of Albertans and Quebecers and other Canadians, to make room, have a smaller government that makes room for the dignity of work and the soft, strong bonds of family. It was by fighting for these principles. Thank you. It was by fighting for these principles and giving hope to the common people that we won the most votes in our party's history, 2.5 million more votes and 25 more seats, often we won these votes in places that had never voted Conservative before. And now it is clear Conservatives are the party of workers, including union workers, small business owners, and young people. Have you seen the youth delegation at this convention? It is amazing. You know, in the past, when I was growing up, we would go to a conservative convention and you'd look out at the crowd and it would be the Great White North, white hair everywhere. And we love the people with white hair, the wisdom that they share with all of us, but we also need a party that's infused with young people. And on that front, we are the youngest party and the oldest party. In fact, Elections Canada holds a mock vote in the high schools on Election Day, and this year, Conservatives won. We came in first. So congratulations, parents. The kids are all right. Now, and you know, every year, 1/3 of those high school kids, roughly, becomes eligible to vote for real. So we got to make sure we get them out to vote by continuing to inspire them every day and in every way. And that means now, obviously, elections teach us lessons, like, for example, the need to hold earlier and open nominations, to have more local autonomy, to empower our local riding associations, who are the backbone of our organization. And for that, I want to thank all of you in this room who have provided such valuable input in the lead up to and throughout this convention. You are the ones whose ears and whose feet are on the ground and have the best intelligence to bring us. And you have told us many things, but one of the most important lessons I have gained from listening to you throughout this convention is that you told us to ignore the voices who keep telling us to abandon our conservative principles. We will remain true to our principles. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, on the issue of the principles that we hold, we won the debate in the last election on every single one of the big issues. On carbon taxes, inflation, housing, resources, crime, drugs, and soon we will be proven right once again on the wasteful and insane Liberal gun grab. It's funny to watch the Liberal rhetoric. First they said Conservatives have no policies. It's just slogans. Then they said Conservative policies are very scary. And then they said, we agree with all the Conservative policies. The best part of being Conservatives is that eventually everyone admits that we were right all along. And you know, it's not just the solutions for the past, it's the solutions for the future that we offer the Canadian people that brings so much hope. Policies like an affordable government for an affordable life. You see, stronger take-home pay requires lower taxes. A strong dollar that buys more requires we end inflationary deficits. Both require we cut spending on bureaucracy, consultants, corporate welfare, foreign aid, and handouts to phony refugees. And speaking of affordability, everything should be dirt cheap in Canada because we have the most dirt in which to build homes, grow food, and dig resources, right? Think about it. The treasures in our soil, mixed with the hands of our genius engineers and trades workers, can and will supply an abundant, affordable, autonomous future to our country. And now more than ever, we need autonomy and independence. Unfair and unresolved U.S. tariffs and diplomatic distractions and disruptions from down south and from other places show that we cannot rely on others to secure our borders or buy our goods. Conservatives renew our good faith offer to help the Prime Minister and his government get U.S. tariffs removed and open new markets abroad. We will work with the government in any way we can because Conservatives always put our country ahead of our party. In this dangerous and uncertain world, Canadians must stand united so we can stand on our own 2 feet. United and strong, Canadians will bow before no nation anywhere on earth. Canada must make new friends, honor our alliances, and do our part. On resources, trade, diplomacy, foreign aid, and everything else, though, it's clear we must prioritize our own national interest above all else. And here's the good news. The good news is that the same Conservative policies that will make life affordable will make Canada more self-reliant. We will do it by starting with the Canadian Sovereignty Act. This is a law that will put us back in charge of our lives. It'll bring home the $500 billion of investment that has fled south by ending capital gains tax on reinvestment in Canada. That'll be like economic rocket fuel for startups, high-tech, and major job-creating projects. We'll replace anti-development laws like C-69 and C-48 with new laws that will quickly approve projects and allow energy shipping off our west coast. We will also quickly greenlight Danielle Smith's proposed pipeline to the Pacific. Let me just put this into context. That pipeline would move 1 million barrels a day and $30 billion a year. That would be the single biggest increase to overseas exports in Canadian history. And for context, the Liberals now say that they want this strategic partnership with China for a new world order. One pipeline to the Pacific would increase our exports more than all the products that we currently sell to China in a year. So I think that is a more accurate and pragmatic approach to diversifying our trade. We will end the industrial carbon tax so that we can produce more steel, aluminum, and other things that it takes to grow food and build homes. And speaking of that, you want to launch or relaunch the biggest tariff-proof industry in Canada? You know what it is? Home building. No other country can tariff home building because it's built on Canadian homes, on Canadian land, with Canadian workers using Canadian lumber. It is literally the most homegrown industry we have. So why don't we dedicate ourselves to working with all levels of government to remove all the taxes and all the red tape so that we can create jobs, harvest more lumber, and build homes that our young people can afford. We'll create free trade bonuses for our provinces to open up markets to the rest of Canada. We'll bring incentives and rules to ensure that we keep our Canadian technologies in Canadian hands on Canadian soil. We'll move from the second slowest building permits in the developed world to the fastest building permits anywhere in the developed world. You know, people ask, it seems so complicated. How is it that we get things built? There's actually a very simple checklist that you need to build resource projects. 1, you need the resources. Check. 2, you need the workers. Check. We've got 100,000 unemployed construction workers available to start any day. 3rd, you need the investment. Check. We've got massive pension funds that are literally investing hundreds of billions of our savings in other countries where they can get things built. So the 4th thing is the only thing missing. It's the federal government permits. They are among the slowest in the world. We need to check mark this box so that we can get the federal government out of the way, get the permits so we can get shovels in ground, and that's what we will do. Self-reliance requires self-defense. We must be a nation that protects our seas, skies, and soil without depending on the U.S. or anyone else to do it for us. And that's what our Conservatives believe. It's time to cut the back office bureaucracy and the botched purchases so that massive increases in defense spending actually hit the front line and support our soldiers, sailors, aircrew, and veterans. We will reassert Arctic sovereignty in this great conservative tradition of Harper and Diefenbaker. We will take back control of our north and ensure no foreign powers ever threaten our territory. New bases in Iqaluit. You know, we have no bases in the north right now, in the Arctic north today. We haven't had any since the Cold War. We will open new bases in Iqaluit, Churchill, and Nunavik. 4 rather than 2 new icebreakers will break open that ice and open up new passageways for Canadians. We will speed up the purchases of new tactical submarines. I think my little girl wants to be a submarine sailor. She's very excited by that idea. So I think she's tired of hearing Daddy's speech, though, so we lost her. We will speed up purchases of new submarines, tactical helicopters, satellite ground stations, over-the-top radar, and we will quickly add an arsenal of drones that will cover more territory at lower costs and less risk to Canadian life so that we are ready for the future of warfare. And we will expand recruitment and also performance by promoting and hiring based on merit and not political correctness. Our forces will be guided by a warrior culture, and our government will be dedicated to its first responsibility, which is to take care of our precious veterans. They fought for us, and we will always fight for them. On doit diversifier nos marchés et renforcer nos alliances avec nos partenaires de l'OTAN. On doit combattre les tarifs américains et faire ce qu'on peut pour avoir une entente sans tarifs avec les États-Unis. Et oui, les conservateurs sont prêts à travailler avec M. Carney et son gouvernement pour trouver des nouveaux marchés et pour éliminer les tarifs américains. Mais on ne peut plus dépendre les autres. C'est pour ça que je propose la loi sur la souveraineté qui va nous permettre d'exploiter nos ressources naturelles, de ramener la production ici au Canada avec des emplois payants et un dollar et un pouvoir d'achat plus fort pour qu'on puisse être vraiment, véritablement et finalement maître chez nous. Thank you. And we need to unite this country like never before, because a house divided cannot stand. You know, here we go again. Liberals are in power, and just as night follows day, separatist movements are in resurgence back in Quebec and here in Alberta. These movements, which had been dormant or even dead when Prime Minister Harper left office. Now, We can simply attack people who feel this way, or we can ask them why. Why in Alberta and Quebec? Why, particularly among young people in those provinces, have so many lost hope in Confederation? Well, here's a few hints. For the last 10 years, Ottawa has told our young people that our history is filled with shame and horror, that we are a post-national country with no core identity, and that our youth will never own homes. But other than that, they should feel great about being united in Canada. All the while, the federal government stomps on Alberta's energy sector and Quebec's jurisdiction. Now, our message to those youth and to all of the people in Alberta and Quebec who are losing hope in our country: you will again have a country that respects your autonomy, is proud of your industries, unites us around our common identity and history, a country that will afford you the hopeful future that you have earned. You know, it's incredible that when there's never been a referendum crisis or a national unity crisis when Conservatives have been in power. It's an interesting coincidence, isn't it? Quand les libéraux sont au pouvoir, par contre, ça profite toujours aux souverainistes qui avaient disparu pendant les années Harper. Quand les conservateurs sont au pouvoir, l'autonomie du Québec est respectée et la contribution de l'Alberta est reconnue. Et notre pays est fier, uni, abordable et rempli d'espoir. Le problème, c'est que depuis 10 ans, les libéraux ont dit effectivement deux choses aux jeunes Québécois et jeunes Albertains: que le Canada est un État post-national, sans identité, avec une histoire supposément honteuse, et que les jeunes, vous autres, vous n'allez jamais avoir une maison. Donc, on dit à nos jeunes: vous n'avez pas d'identité et pas de maison, mais soyons fiers d'être Canadiens. On peut imaginer pourquoi nos jeunes commencent à perdre l'espoir. Donc ce soir, j'ai un message pour des jeunes Québécois. Le nationalisme québécois fait partie du patriotisme canadien. Le Canada sera fier de son histoire et de son identité. Vous allez redevenir fiers de notre pays et le Canada va vous permettre de réaliser vos ambitions, vos rêves et votre avenir au sein d'un Canada uni. Merci. And we will celebrate. We will celebrate rather than tear down our heroes in history. Our museums and heritage programs will tell the unvarnished truth that Conservatives have known all along. This is the greatest country on earth precisely because of the goodness of those people who came here and sacrificed before us. As the great Nova Scotian Joseph Howe said, a wise nation preserves its records, gathers up its monuments, decorates the tombs of its illustrious dead, repairs its great public structures, and fosters national pride and love of country by perpetual reference to the sacrifices and glories of the past. Uniting around our common history will heal the divisions. We want a nation where all of us are equal, a nation that is colorblind. We want a nation with no more hyphens, no more group labels. We are all Canadians, Canadians in our heart, Canadians in every single way. And immigration must serve our national interest as well. We will welcome those who contribute, and we'll make sure that their skills are recognized so that they can get licensed to work as doctors and nurses in our country and reduce wait times in our hospitals. At the same time, we must cap immigration at numbers we can integrate into our jobs, housing, healthcare, and Canadian way of life. We will deport criminals, end fraud, end abuse and handouts to phony refugees. We will no longer allow foreign conflicts to spill onto our streets. We must unite to end anti-Semitism and the attacks on our places of worship. And stand with our Jewish friends and neighbors who are under attack like never before. We want Jews to feel comfortable and safe. They should be able to wear the Star of David, put up the mezuzah, and wear a kippah everywhere and be proudly Jewish all around. That's the story of Canada, isn't it? It's incredible. Protestants and Catholics teared each other's eyeballs out for hundreds of years on the other side of the pond, and they came here and got along. Yes, we squabble. Yes, we get on each other's nerves, but we don't fight each other because of religious or sectoral differences. We get along with our next-door neighbors regardless of where their grandparents live. When newcomers arrive in this country, just as it has always been, we will ensure that they leave differences at the doors. Et on va laisser les problèmes d'ailleurs à la porte. We must restore security at home. Crime has gotten so bad in this country that in Toronto, the police tell people to leave their keys at the door so that thieves can more safely steal their car in the middle of the night. In Brampton, people are literally being told that because there is an extortion wave on their particular street, they should move into their basements to minimize being hit, the chance of being hit by a stray bullet. In Canada, it's not just stats, it's human tragedies. In 2024, a violent repeat offender, released by liberal laws, murdered a wonderful piano teacher, Esty Jones. The killer should have been in jail, and Esty should still be alive today. Her niece, Esther, is here with us today. Esther, where is she? She decided to turn this terrible strategy into action, this terrible tragedy into real change. She joined our party and testified in a parliamentary committee against catch and release liberal laws. And together with her, together with you, Esther, we will work to pass laws requiring that anyone convicted of 3 serious offenses will have a minimum of 10 years in prison with no jail, parole, probation, or house arrest. The tiny group of criminals, the career criminals, will stay behind bars so that no one ever faces a tragedy like Esther's family. And I can tell you, Esther, that your wonderful aunt will have an incredible legacy, because her story will inspire us to take the action that will save so many other lives. Thank you, and God bless your beautiful family. We will also protect the freedoms of law-abiding people with a new Castle law that allows you to take whatever action necessary to protect your family against home invaders. We will do so also by protecting the rights of law-abiding firearms owners, stopping the liberal gun grab, and putting the money into border security. By definition, if you've got a possession and acquisition license, if you're following the law, if you would even respect this confiscation policy, you're by definition not the risk. You're not a danger, and we shouldn't be wasting police resources harassing you. The Liberals want to protect turkeys from hunters. We want to protect Canadians from criminals. And we will protect your religious freedom. We will stop the Liberals from censoring politically incorrect Bible verses. You will have the ability to worship God in your own way. And we'll protect our loved ones from addictions. Overdoses have cost 50,000 lives and overrun our streets. We'll bring in life sentences for fentanyl kingpins, shut down the drug dens, and treat drug abuse, because 50,000 dead is too many. Let me tell you. After years of intense struggle with drugs, Kirk was determined to take his life. While driving on the Sea to Sky Highway, he took off his seatbelt and he drove full speed into a rock wall. But God was not finished with him yet. Kirk survived. And he later said, at that moment, I decided I was going to change my life. Kirk entered recovery, counseling, group therapy, exercise, and yes, faith. It was hard, but it saved his life. And he has since become a chef at the Saint Treatment Center. He makes a mean steak, which he's promised to let me try. He's also the CEO of Probiotic Sodas and has 6 employees. He will soon be marrying his beautiful fiancée, and both of them are here with us tonight. Give them a big round of applause. Way to go, buddy. Way to go, man. We love you. You know, when I go to these treatment facilities, I love to go and meet with mostly the young men who are in those places, turning their lives around. And I walk in and I say, I'm not here because you need me. I'm here because, frankly, I'm here because I need you. Canada has a job for you to do. You need to get better and go out and pull the next guy off the street. And he's going to come in and get better, and he'll go back out and pull the next guy off the street. And we're going to keep doing that again and again till every last one of our brothers and sisters is back on their feet. So hang on, have hope. Help is on the way. Hope. That's really the theme of this convention and this evening. Hope is on the way for our people as well. But hope is not just a comforting blanket. Hope is the knowledge that your work will fulfill your purpose, your why. He who has a why can bear any how, Viktor Frankl wrote in the great book, Man's Search for Meaning. That thing that you call meaning could be for you a home, a career, a family, a business, seeing your autistic daughter speak for the first time. It's the thing. That meaning is the thing that keeps people fighting on through hardship. People ask me, why? I keep going. You know, the slings and arrows, they're the easy part. Constantly being away from family, that's the harder part. You know, my little boy, Cruz, he cut out and colored a little paper Spider-Man and gave it for me to take on the road to stop bad guys. I look at it when I'm in the hotel room, sometimes late at night. It makes me smile. I see all those little scribbles and cut marks and imagine those little figures working away. And I know that one day I'll come home and those fingers will have grown big. And I miss him. And too often, I kiss my wife and daughter goodnight through FaceTime. So why keep going? Because we want our kids to have the same promise that we had. Because we want them to know that when you care about something, you work for it. When you believe in something, you fight for it. And most of all, when you start something, you never give up. Because the unsung heroes who built and protect this country, who have it infinitely harder than I do, they never give up, so I have no right to give up. Because all of you who pound signs on frozen ground, knock doors on dark nights, and sacrifice warm family dinners for cold campaign pizza, you never give up, so I'll never give up. Because the young couple scrimping to start a family, and the single mother fighting each day to feed her kids, they never give up, so that we never give up. Because the Canadian Pacific Railway workers who pounded spikes into frozen ground and forged steel ribbon that united East and West, they never gave up, so we never gave up. Because the Canadian teenagers living in frozen, rat-infested trenches who had it infinitely harder than we do, they fought on, they never gave up, and they won wars, so that we will never give up on our country in these times. Comme Canadiens. Comme Canadiens, on ne lâche pas, parce que ça vaut la peine de se battre pour notre pays, son peuple et sa promesse. Because we are Canadians, only Canadians, could carve the world's best country out of a big, cold, vast land, because we never give up, we never back down, we never run away, we stand united, tonight, together, always, because this country, its people, and promise are worth fighting for, because while some say this is as good as it gets, we know the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's pull the audio down so we don't get a copyright strike. So there you have it. Okay, let's do the review and analysis, shall we? I'm going to go to the chat first. I never do that. I'm going to look in the chat. You guys tell me, what do you think? I see a bunch of Canadian flags from Lindy, and I see Rick's texts keep making me check mine. You can hear me in the background. Not very uhs, ums, or ahs, somebody says. Lindy says, fantastic, all caps, 2 exclamation points. And Maureen says, finally, sheesh, that was painful. Okay. I'm always afraid to tell you what I think, lest I get attacked, but it's inevitable. Pierre always strikes me as being sort of a, what's the right word? Kind of nerdy. Just kind of a nerdy guy. Not in a bad way. Sort of kind of nerdy like me. Do you know what I mean? He's like he's very personable, likable in a nerdy sort of way. In a Revenge of the Nerds kind of way. But he's a little bit cooler than that. I think he works out too, actually. He's got, I think under that shirt, he's kind of buff. Have you noticed that? I'm pretty sure he lifts weights. Yeah, goes to the gym. Anyway, that's beside the point. The comment that caught my attention right away was when he talked about the liberals freaking out so much because of what they're seeing here tonight that they would invoke the Emergencies Act. I'm maybe not getting the context exactly right, but him talking about that, it just resonated with me. Of course, the Conservatives didn't vote with the libs to invoke the Emergencies Act during the Freedom Convoy, but to bring that up tonight, I don't think it was accidental. Obviously not. It was scripted. I'm just wondering why. I think there's a lot of signaling to different groups that took place tonight. That being one example. And then he went straight into affordability, the very thing we were talking about earlier tonight, inflation, saying Canadians can't afford to live under the Liberals. Some truth to that, of course. Definitely. Prices are still too high in the grocery stores in relative to wages. What else did he talk about here? Then it didn't take long and he started to get kind of nationalistic on us and patriotic, saying that Canada will never bow before no nation on earth. So that obviously is a signal to Canadians saying that he will fight for the country, essentially, in the face of these tariffs, this trade war from Trump. And I think the tone of the message, especially on that front, was somewhat different tonight than what we were getting from him during the election. It felt different tonight. It didn't feel as negative. Maybe it's just because so much negativity was coming from that network of live streamers, which I think did as much harm as it did good, honestly. They racked up a lot of views. And I think that, but I think also they pushed with their political spin, their narrative, which was very negative because they were trying to take down that elbows up campaign strategy from the Liberals. They had to attack that, and they were doing that in a very negative way. And I think it cost the Conservatives ground in some areas, alienated a lot of people in the middle. But that's my take on it. And then I think, I also noticed that the tone, that the messaging in several areas of tonight's speech from Poilievre felt very MAGA-like, very Trump-like, very America First-like, with language like prioritize our own national interests is just one phrase that he used. And then came up with, something he said before as a strategy to stimulate the Canadian economy, a very viable thing, a practical thing, a sound economics thing, saying the Conservatives, if he's elected, he would end the capital gains tax on reinvestment in Canada. And that could incentivize investment into the country. And then, of course, talking about pipelines, saying he would end the no new pipelines legislation, which is not technically the name of the legislation, but we all know what he's talking about. And then he talks about building homes. But I'm still not quite hearing the details. What would change? Would anything change? Or is he still going to push that same plan that he put forward during the last election for home building? And as I've indicated many times, when you read the two plans, the Carney plan and his plan, honestly, the Carney plan is more conservative and I think is grounded more in economic and fiscal principles and uses incentives more effectively than the Poilievre plan did. So I would hope that they would make some adjustments to that to make it more free market driven and use actual market forces to propel the home building across the country. At the same time, talking about increasing defense spending, which is also a signal to the United States. He's sending out a message there to address those issues of national sovereignty with regard to our ability to defend our own territory. Did give some specific examples of what a conservative government would do, making reference in particular to not just 2, but 4 icebreakers up in the Arctic, which in the long run could pay big dividends. That might be a worthwhile capital expenditure for the federal government as a national investment. Could pay huge dividends, really, if the Americans allow us to keep it. These days, I'm wondering if Trump is going to confiscate everything in our hemisphere. We've talked about that. We'll be talking about it more as well in the weeks, months, and maybe years ahead. And then also with regard to national security and defense, he said that Canada would, under a conservative government, invest in a massive number of drones, which is probably a sound military strategy in today's technologically driven reality. And then shifts over, and this is another Trump-like thing, and I think that this messaging is aimed very much at people who are on the Trump side of politics, the Maple MAGA set, the people, further right of center, saying that hiring policies under a conservative government would focus on merit, not DEI. An anti-woke message, certainly signaling to a particular group of people politically. The other thing that really struck me, though, and personally, I don't like the language, but he said that our military would adopt a warrior culture. Where have we been hearing that? Directly from the mouth of Pete Hegseth. That really I find disturbing, but that is really him again. You can use the word dog whistle if you want. I don't think it's an inaccurate characterization here. Warrior culture, though, I don't like what I'm seeing down in the United States. I don't like the way they've said, or that they're in the process of changing the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Personally, I think that a country should defend itself. I don't think we should be going out taking over other countries and conducting warfare. We need to engage in defensive actions, defend our country. But that's me. And, they're adopting this language, this aggressive language with regard to the military. And I just don't like it. So to bring that up here to Canada, a country, honestly, that has in my lifetime had a military that has been focused more on peacekeeping than on going to war. Not to say we haven't gone to war in the past when we have needed to, and Canadians have really stepped up and have always punched above our weight. But to start using language like warrior culture, it changes the culture, not just of the military, but of the entire country when you do something like that. And then something like that, the entire country has to live with that reputation globally. It affects how the entire world looks at Canada. It looks at all of us. Then he also talked about wanting a country that is colorblind. And when I was listening to that rhetoric, I don't know about you, but then I took a step back, because it seemed to me like he was doing what he was doing, has been doing for a long time, which is, I just get the feeling that he is saying what he thinks people want to hear. And that, I think I got a lot of that in this speech, where he was saying things to play both sides off against the middle, signal to these people over there, and then signal to those people over there. The messaging seems to mesh, but if you really dig into it, there's some friction and conflict between some of the different, I won't say promises that he made, but some of the goals that he seemed to state here, saying that he wants, the colorblind statement. That's something that I would say. But then when he says other things, I wouldn't necessarily say some of the things that I'll highlight here coming up. And I'll do it right here. He says, end handouts to phony refugees. When I hear language like that, I wonder what that really means and what that's really going to look like in the end if he follows through with policies to back up a throwaway line almost at this point in a speech, because we're seeing what's going on down in the States. And I said a long time ago, before Trump was reelected, before he got in, when he was talking about these mass deportations, you can go back and look it up. And I said, man, what's that going to look like? This is not going to be good. It won't reflect well on Trump or his administration if he follows through with a plan like this, because I can see it now. I said paramilitary forces in the streets, rounding people up, throwing them into the back of paddy wagons or trucks, and then shipping them out of the country. And that's exactly what we've seen. Paramilitary forces on the streets of America, rounding people up, throwing them into the back of trucks, vans, paddy wagons, if you will, and then shipping them out and violating people's rights, not giving them the due process that they are constitutionally entitled to. I won't go on about it, but if that kind of activity comes here to Canada, I will be horrified. It's how you do it. If you want to grapple with immigration and attack that issue, you can do it if you want to, but it needs to be, in my view, it needs to be done legally. You need to respect the rights of everyone and make sure that you follow the rules. Don't bend the rules. Don't make up new rules to get around rules. If you do that, you're violating my rights. You violate one person's rights and you put the rights of everyone at risk. We've discussed that, and I'll be talking about it more. And then saying that conservatives would make sure that these foreign conflicts would no longer spill out onto our streets. I wonder how he's going to do that. What does that mean? What's the enforcement mechanism or the incentive mechanism, or what is the mechanism period that he would actually use to end the fighting, the the friction, the conflict in the streets, which really these days looks very much like competing protests where people meet up and clash. It's rumble in the jungle, right? And the jungle is the streets of cities like Toronto, and Ottawa, where you're seeing just constant protests, often conflicting protests, and then sometimes media, and I won't say journalists, but media running out into the fray and inserting themselves into these events and making themselves part of the story for their own purposes. But anyway, and then he goes on and talks about tonight ending anti-Semitism. I knew if he was going to talk about all this other stuff, he would talk about that because he has a strong base of support right there. So he wanted to address that. And I think he probably wanted to. And I think that he absolutely means that when he's talking about ending anti-Semitism. Definitely committed to it. I think I shouldn't say definitely, because with Pierre Poilievre, I have to be honest, even after tonight, well, I do feel a bit better than I did during the election with what he said. Some of the stuff he said during the election in particular really had me concerned. And so he's been losing me, as the Conservative Party has at many turns over the past decade, 2 decades. As I've often said, I didn't leave the Conservative Party. I was a member, like a card-carrying member, for a little while after I stopped being a journalist. And then I was only for like a year. And that's because I wanted to be able to vote in conventions and for the leader to insert my 2 cents worth and have influence over the party platform. But anyway, yeah, so I'm not anymore. I don't carry, I'm not a member of any party at this point. I don't really want to be a part of any party at all, to frank with you. The anti-Semitism thing, I don't think it's just a throwaway line here. I think that there is, I think he really does mean that one. Castle law, that's an issue that's in vogue right now. So he mentioned that he scored points with it, with again, a particular group of people. Every one of these things, he's reaching out and tapping into a base of support in pockets of different, I won't even say demographics. I'll say political pockets, different issues appealing to different groups of people. We've got mixed demographics, and he's tapping into the support with each of these individual issues. And drugs too. I mean, he keeps talking about that. He talked about it a lot during the election. He's always talked about the drugs issue. And it is a growing issue in our country. But again, I just wonder, would he really make a difference? I don't think I've ever seen a politician truly make a difference when it comes to, battling drugs. Whether it was the full-scale war on drugs, during the previous conservative Republican eras in modern times in the U.S., the Just Say No campaigns, all of these things. I don't know about you, but it just seems to me the drug problems, they just never go away. They ebb and wane a little bit. Mostly they just get worse. So with these promises that he's making about, ending the drug problem, and maybe they might help, but I'll believe it when I see it. I don't mean to be a negative Nelly or a negative Ricky when it comes to Pierre Poilievre and efforts on that point. Go for it if you think you have solutions, I guess. And the other thing that I found kind of weird is we want hope, we want hope, we want hope. So that's the slogan. Listening to the way he used that at the end of the speech tonight, yes, I get it. And you know what it is? I think it's still a weird thing to adopt as a campaign slogan. And that's what this is. It's a campaign slogan. Whether it will hold and stick with the party heading into the next election, we shall see. I think they were testing things out tonight to see how these slogans, these ideas, these phrases play, what kind of traction they get with them. But the reason it's, to me, weird is because Obama used that. Many politicians and political campaigns have used that word hope in the past, but that's the one that springs to mind as one from just recent memory. And then they're resurrecting it here in a conservative campaign. And I don't think that the conservative base of support really is that friendly to even the legacy of Barack Obama. And to use that word, maybe might work. I think it's better than what they were doing. I've been saying for, since the last election, during the last election, I said, this isn't going to work. They've lost their platform to the Liberals, and all they're left with is all this negative attack narrative. It's just everything that was coming out of the mouths of these conservative streamers who were essentially endorsing Pierre Poilievre online in the last election and racking up a ton of views in the process. Not all of it was organic. A lot of it's paid for. But they were just so negative that I'm certain and that's why they didn't win. Just because you get a lot of numbers doesn't mean the people watching you actually support you. They're watching you maybe because they don't like you too. I know I've got some of that going on here. And that's fair enough. But in an election, I think the conservatives had this distorted view of how much support they really had. And then they got a dose of reality at the ballot box on election day. And the distortions came from the numbers they were seeing online. Just my view as someone who has been around politics for a while. And I don't think their analysis was on target at all during the election. I've been saying that a lot. Sometimes when we've had people on the program and I've talked about it, people generally disagree with me on it, but I think I'm spot on. And I think what we witnessed tonight with this shift in the messaging, the shift in the tone, the shift in the slogans that they're using to things that are more positive and hopeful, I think that's the key. Hope may actually work for the conservatives heading into the next election, because that's a word that can chip away at the Teflon on Mark Carney and the Liberals as they, keep their aggressive elbows up style and wrap themselves in the Canadian flag, which is what Canadians, I think, ultimately wanted during the election. They still want it now. You're seeing that manifest itself in the most recent poll that shows Carney is the favored, or the person most viewed as being the most competent or wanted to be prime minister in the country, and Poilievre down around, I think he's at like 29% or somewhere in the 20s. A far distant second at this point, but Carney's on a honeymoon, still an extended honeymoon, really, politically, after becoming prime minister. And he's riding a wave of, I think, frustration with Canadians, with the United States. And so he's enjoying that wave of support right now that has come from his speech in Davos, where the critics are attacking him, but the majority of Canadians are applauding because they're afraid, they're offended by everything that Trump is doing on the tariff trade front, And so, yeah, I think that Mark Carney has and his team have made some very intelligent moves. And now I think Poilievre might be getting on track finally with his messaging, that will resonate with Canadians as being patriotic, not being negative, not crapping all over the country, or at least having that appearance. And these streamers were, and they continue to do it, a lot of them. And I don't think now, at this point, they're all being paid. Some of them have shifted their narrative, and they're actually, I've seen them, attacking Poilievre. So I guess it just depends on, well, I won't even say it. I mean, you can kind of figure it out. So one over here, they're saying vote for him and supporting him, and now they've pivoted away after the election. But they're still attacking the country, and that's because they're pro 51st staters. Coming right out and saying it. I mean, I don't know how much more obvious it has to be. They're just outright calling for Canada to become the 51st state and crapping all over the country and cheering for everything, every blow, every drop of blood that's taken from this country right now, every wound that's inflicted. They cheer for it. They love it. They kind of deflect and say that it's the fault of the Liberals, but the truth of the matter is their very language is disgustingly anti-Canadian, honestly. Well, they put maple leafs on themselves and pretend to be patriotic. They're not patriots at all, not Canadian patriots. Not today, they're not. I wish some of them would come back. And we've got American-style politics kind of finding its way into our country more and more every day. We saw it here tonight with Pierre Poilievre. I'm not saying that he's in a position where he's necessarily going to sell out the country, but I definitely picked up on the vibe, the tone, the American style, and even the mirroring of MAGA messaging woven into his speech, directed at, again, certain pockets of people at various times, and it came right down to the very end, too. I don't know if you picked up on it. The best is yet to come. Where were we hearing that in the last election? Oh, it was the last U.S. election. Trump was using that. The best is yet to come. There were many messages tonight delivered by Pierre Poilievre that were pretty much word for word what we heard coming from Donald Trump during the last election, U.S. presidential election. And maybe he's doing it because, well, we know why he's doing it, because those are slogans that got Trump elected. Those are slogans that he thinks will resonate with the Maple MAGA crowd, probably more people on the PPC, the People's Party of Canada side, and just within conservative circles generally. But that in itself might actually come back and backfire on him, because I'll tell you, Donald Trump is wounded. All this immigration stuff, what the shooting of Alex Preddy and the shooting of Renee Good in particular. Well, we're seeing people down there, pro-Trumpers, making excuses for what happened. I mean, the majority of people saw what happened, and well, a lot of people don't care, and I think there are some really dark-minded people out there who have been applauding what happened and saying, yeah, it's about time, because they're looking for vengeance. The reality is, overall, Trump has suffered because of this. This has been a turning point for the Trump administration, and I don't know if he'll come back from this one to levels of support that he had prior. And when these midterms come up, I don't think the midterms are going to be kind to the Republicans. I think Trump is honestly in a bit of trouble, and they're going to find out. So for Pierre Poilievre now to be using exact language from MAGA world in his speech tonight, if he keeps that up, and Trump does take a tumble in popularity, that could come back to bite him on the butt again, paving or clearing a path for the Liberals to another electoral victory. And I don't know when the next election is going to be. I'm hearing people say that Carney's likely going to go for an early election because he's riding this current wave of support and he's looking for this some way to get that elusive majority government. If he can't get it through floor crossings, which we've seen, and he still needs a little bit more, he might just go to the polls, some people are saying, and have another election to try and push it through, take advantage of his popularity in the polls, and hope that he can secure enough support to form a majority government. I don't know I think that's unlikely, frankly, at this point. I think Carney would realize is that the support that he has right now is actually fragile, could shift on a dime. It depends on what happens with Trump. It depends on what happens with the economy. It depends on what happens with wars. Many, many factors. And Poilievre too. I think we're in an extremely volatile political environment right now. I don't think Carney's going to go to the polls anytime soon. He has, I think the ability and the political finesse here to jam through most of what he wants to get done with support from other parties, not necessarily the libs, but we shall see. And the pipelines thing, we'll see where that goes. I don't think Carney's going to do anything until he does something with it. I don't know. The pipeline. And that's the other thing that could easily come back to bite the Conservatives on the butt again, because they keep saying he doesn't do anything. He isn't doing anything. Why doesn't he do something? He's had a year. He hasn't done anything. Well, my guess is what's going to happen is Carney's going to do some of these things. Then there's going to be an election. And then once again, they will have taken the wind right out of the Conservative sails heading into an election cycle. And the Liberals are very good at it. I mean, they've been around they've been forming government far more in Canadian history than the Conservatives. And they've just got a very powerful political machine over there. Lots of money, a legacy, and very powerful, smart strategists. That's what the Conservatives are up against. They've got a good team too, but they really screwed up in the last election. It was Poilievre's election to lose, and he lost it because, in my view, he had people around him who were giving him very bad advice. And he was taking it and saying things that just didn't score enough points, and they needed to pivot on their platform and their campaign's narrative, and they didn't do it. So they didn't make it, and they're putting a spin on it, saying, "Well, he did bring in more voters overall. They just didn't have enough to form government." Yeah, I guess they did generate more overall support, but not in the right places to affect electoral victory and enough ridings to get them enough seats to win. So it just comes down to this. Let's see what happens next, and anything can happen. It's very unpredictable. Overall, though, a pretty good speech. Just take another quick look in the chat. PPSing Zith Eco Pooter. I don't know what that means. Maureen, I don't know what it means. Keyboard is cuckoo. Yeah, I see that. What's going on with your computer? You're putting up weird things. The new maps puts America at checkmate. Maureen says, yes, Rick, PP sounds just like True P. Yeah, that's for me, that's the bottom line. I just feel like Poilievre is still saying things that he thinks people want to hear. I don't think there's real conviction behind some of these things that he's saying. I don't know. But he seems to waffle. And he says contradictory things on things like immigration. We have to be colorblind, but want to deport people. It's like, I know what you're doing there, dude. You're signaling to them and to them at the same time. And when you get elected, you're going to have to go one way or the other in order to keep them happy. And I don't think you're going to keep them happy over there. It remains to be seen. And then, we saw that video. I don't know. Did you notice have you seen that video online of Daniel Tyree of the People's Party of Canada? I don't think he's with the PPC anymore. He's got this new group. And they were outside, I think, in Calgary, and they pulled the cover off the picture of Pierre Poilievre, I guess, with a group of people, I don't know, Indian Canadians or whatever, people from India. I don't know. Like, he's been signaling to those guys. Pierre Poilievre was signaling to those guys and bringing people with those political, cultural, immigration ideas into the conservative fold. They were trying to do that during the last election, right? But they don't believe him. They don't trust him because Pierre's not going to do that for them. They know it. But he's still signaling to them. So, again, because he's been doing that, I just don't trust him. And I hate to just say it that way. I just still feel, even after tonight, it's like the reason I don't trust him is just because I feel like I have a Forrest Gump box of chocolates and I don't know what I'm going to get every time I eat one from him. I don't know what I'm really going to get if he gets elected. I'm pretty sure that the stuff he's saying, you're not really quite going to get that. What do you guys think? Any comments in the chat on that? A Stoic teacher says, someone spilt coffee on their keyboard, but we get the message. Yeah. People are dinging me over here. My keyboard just went cuckoo. Like, what the heck? I don't know. Cuckoo keyboard. When I say it like that, I sound like a dweeb, like a nerd, like Pierre Poilievre. It's the way he laughs, I think, mostly, that makes me think he's kind of nerdy. You notice the way he laughs? Makes him likable, though. It's like me. I wish I could be cool, but I'm just not. I'm kind of cool when I want to be, in a nerdy kind of way. Revenge of the Nerds. There's a little blast from the past. Oh, there was something about the Melania movie that somebody sent me too. I should mention that tonight before we sign off. What was it that was sent to me? Let me just see here. Okay. So this is, has anybody seen that thing? I haven't watched it. I haven't even watched the preview. I'm going, Melania. I don't, why do I care? Why? I don't want to watch it. So I know it's just going to be a waste of my time and my brain. So what is this? It's a reviews site, I guess. I think it's Rotten Tomatoes. Let's go look it up. I think it's not good. Has anyone seen it? Anyone seen the Melania movie? We didn't do a movie tonight because it's already 10:30, so no Maverick Midnight Matinee, by the way. You got Pierre Poilievre instead of a movie. Let's go here. I'm going to look up Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes, Melania. There it is. Okay. I don't think I should play the trailer. It's going to be copyrighted for sure. Then we'll get a strike and they'll be laughing all the way to the bank. Yeah, there you go. Melania. The tomato meter is 8%. The popcornometer is 99%. Is that good? I don't ever look at Rotten Tomatoes. I think is that good or bad? Here are some of the reviews from people. Carl Quinn says, it's impossible not to feel that the real purpose of this portrait is not insight, but rather distraction from the awfulness and corruption of her husband's regime. Liz Shannon Miller. Look, Leni Riefenstahl was a terrible person, but at least she had some style. Accused sex pest, confirmed hack Brett Ratner, meanwhile captures the proceedings with all the flair of an HGTV something. Jen says, a fantastic flick. Our theater was sold out and erupted in applause and cheers at the end of the show. Melania is a wonderful, let's go to the full review here. If I can. I guess I'm not signed in. You're not allowed to look at this because you didn't make a Rotten Tomatoes account. Do you need an account for this? Yeah, you got to log in, sign up. I don't really want one. Should I get a Rotten Tomatoes account? Is it worth it? Great glimpse into Flotus. Beautifully done. I don't know. Now in theater. What do the tickets cost to go see this thing? Amazon MGM Studios film Melania offers unprecedented access to the 20 days leading up to the 2025 presidential inauguration through the eyes of the First Lady herself. Step inside Melania Trump's world as she orchestrates inauguration plans, navigates the complexities of the White House transition, and moves her family back to the nation's capital. With exclusive footage capturing critical meetings, private conversations, and never-before-seen environments, Melania showcases Mrs. Trump's return to one of the world's most powerful roles. How much are tickets? Well, is it playing it in Canadian theaters? I'm going to look it up. Has anyone seen it? Anybody? Yes, the Stoke teacher. She is a stunning looking woman for sure, but we'll pass on the movie. Yeah, I don't really want to watch it. I don't think anybody wants to see it. Melania tickets not selling fast in Canada. Yeah, here's Reddit. Okay, let's look at this. Yeah, we should boycott the movie until that would get Trump's attention. Boycott the Melania movie until all tariffs are removed. And you stop insulting us. Melania tickets not selling fast in Canada. And there it is right there. The account name is Boycott United States. Says, so for fun, I went through the Cineplex Melania seat previews across Canada. As of noon today, covering all today's showtimes, 149 seats have been reserved for the entire country. Oakville and Vaughan get the dubious distinction of the most seats, 28 and 35, while surprisingly, Lethbridge, Red Deer, and Grand Prairie have 0 or 1 booked. So yeah, this will be breaking records. I don't have time to check the numbers for other cinema chains, but as others have said, we should completely boycott all chains showing this garbage as well as Amazon. There it is there. An empty theater. Okay, we get the message. Should we start a whole campaign here? Boycott Melania movie? What we need a slogan, we need a campaign, a website to get everybody on board. $12.72 B51. I don't know. What does that mean? 1272 B50. You want a B51? You'd be better off being a B52 than a B51. You want to be the 51st state? 1272? Go get yourself a B52 and rethink that. Okay? Just as a Canadian to another Canadian. I'm not big on that, as you all know. But hey, you do you. If you want to be a 51 and bend the knee. What else we got here? Movie. But how many Canadians will watch the Spielberg movie Disclosure released this summer? We shall see. Serge says, watching in IMAX. What are you watching in IMAX? The Melania movie or the Spielberg movie? Disclosure. I don't know. Oh dear, the theater is fuller on Friday night. Maverick News movie night. Yeah. Yeah, the drink, the B52. 1272 B51. No, thank you. I had B52s taking off over a motel room one night in Plattsburgh. That would keep you awake. It's my mom's birthday today, and she's been having trouble sleeping. So I got her a gift. I got her one of those white noise machines. So tonight, I hope she drifts off. Not to the sound of B52s. I made a joke. I said, I was going to get you the one with all the war sound effects on it, but I thought might not work too well for you. So I got you the one with ocean sounds and birds instead. I think she's going to try to drift off to the sound of waves slowly washing ashore on a sandy beach tonight. And I hope she sleeps well. 89 years old. Happy birthday, Mom. Love you guys. I will see you all back here tomorrow. 7 p.m. Eastern. On the flip side, what do you want to hear? How about another Captain Ass Kicker version 2? Here we go.
Y'all better stand back. He's laced up his boots, cracked open a cold one. And somebody's about to get TA! Well, he rolls into town on a Harley so loud with a stars and stripes cape and a jaw like a plow. Don't need no laser beams, no high-tech tricks. He just winds up that boot and lets it fly real quick. He kicks ass to the left, kicks ass to the right. Captain Ass Kicker's looking for a fight. From sundown to sunrise, he'll brawl and bite, 'cause Captain Ass Kicker is all right. He's the outlaw hero of this one-horse town, putting punks in their place, laying bad guys down. Ain't no Cape Crusader wearing tights and blush, just a trucker hat and a boot full of hush. He kicks ass in the morning. from no threat. He'll just kick your ego straight out of your head. Justice don't come with a judge and a gavel. It comes with a boot and a trail of gravel. He's banned from 6 states and a Waffle House, but the people still cheer when he clears the louts. He don't play nice, don't read no scripts. He just cocked his foot. Oh, there it rips. He kicks ass in the east, kicks ass in the west. CAK don't sleep, he don't need rest. If there's trouble brewing, he's your invite. Captain Ass Kicker is bringing the fight. So when the night gets rough and the law's too slow, you better call on the man with the steel-toed glove. Captain Ass Kicker. Kicking ass since the day he learned to walk.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.